everybody. Looks like there's one in here. I'm not sure if that may be TJ. Uh, I didn't just yet see him in or backstage rather, or in the green room, as CK likes to call it. Um, but I can certainly blab a little bit to give him time to get in here, and also to hey Texas to give other people that want to watch a chance to get in here. I do have an announcement. Uh, TJ, you're not too late, so don't worry about it. I'm just getting started with my usual ramblings that I usually do. But I do have a little bit of an announcement regarding a change in this weekend's watch along. I'm still going to do a watch along on Saturday, but the Dead Pit Boys invited me to come on their Leprechaun watch along, and I hope I'm not giving anything away. I don't know if CK's already announced it or not. Um, so I got invited to be on theirs on Friday night. So therefore, I thought, well, I don't need to double up on it. I'll just, hang out with them and participate in that. And then I'll just go ahead and do after midnight on Saturday. I hadn't put out any promotion yet for Leprechaun. So, oh, Curly Jaws, if you're listening to this, I know you were planning on coming to my watch along for Leprechaun. And I know you always like to join in with the Dead Pit stuff. So there's your chance, and I will be on theirs. And CK also told me that I have to wear green or else Uncle Bill will pinch me. So I said, well, I'll just wear my Dead Pit shirt, and that way it'll have green on it. He seemed happy with that. Because Wes is always acting sad because I don't wear Dead Pit shirts on my streams that I do. So, Texas, you say you didn't think that I was doing a stream tonight, so you didn't DVR AEW. Well, if you have to bow out and go watch AEW, I'm not going to begrudge you that. But at least until we get done with the Tales from the Darkside seasons, I would assume that me and TJ are going to continue to do this on Wednesdays. And then if TJ wants to join me on another series, when I do another series, he is welcome to, as is anybody else. So also tomorrow, I will be doing the massive third and final part of the For Love of John Cusack stream. For those of you that are enjoying those, I've done 2 already. I honestly did not realize how many movies that John Cusack was in. I mean, it's taken me, or it's going to take me 3 nights to cover them all. So, um, TJ says, only AEW Dark is put on YouTube. LOL. Um, you didn't get a notification? Well, that's probably my fault, Texas, because I was a little late putting the promotion out. And by a little late, I mean like 30 minutes before we were supposed to do this thing. So that is totally my fault. So I'm going to go ahead and add TJ here. Hey, TJ.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. And trust me, you were not late at all. Because,
I
I
found
had, you had
I
to
found my
get dressed.
shirt, by the way.
Yeah, you had to get that Tales from the Dark Side shirt on. Um, my intro is forever long anyway. It's over like
Well,
3
yeah, I
minutes
knew that.
long. So you got plenty of time to get in here. Um, but so TJ, you ready to talk about and this one's gonna be a little bit shorter on the episodes because I was looking at it and there's only 22 episodes in season 3. So I figured we could split it in half and do 11 tonight and 11 next Wednesday.
Right.
And so I don't know if the seasons continue to get shorter until the final season or not. I guess I'll have to look, but I guess we've got a few in here. We'll probably have, well, one of those is TJ, I'm sure, but we've got at least 2 other people in here. We may get a few more the later it gets. So I see TJ's got his creep show stuff back there. He's also got his Tales from the Darkside set.
Season 4 is only 20 episodes.
Only 20? Okay.
Yeah. And that's the last season. So.
Are you drinking booze tonight, or is that something else?
No, it's a unnamed soda.
Unnamed soda.
It's an unnamed dark colored soda.
I couldn't tell if it was like grape or something. It almost looked like something grape, but I guess it was just like you said.
Well, there's a blue light, so that might have made a difference.
I gotcha. I am drinking a little bit of booze tonight in my Evil Dead shooter glasses.
In one of those days, huh?
Well, it wasn't a bad work day or anything. It just tiring. We hit Wednesday sometimes, and I remember going to a library convention years and years ago, and it was one of those 2-week jobbies. We went for a week in the spring and then another week in the fall. And they told us the first week, they said, when you hit about Wednesday, you're going to feel like you hit a brick wall because you're going to be absorbing so much information. So I'm kind of feeling like that today. So with that being said, I think we'll go ahead and get started with these episodes. And the first episode of season 3 is The Circus. So I'm going to let... But not a fun kind of circus. This is a very bizarre
circus. It depends on what kind of fun you have. I don't know.
And don't accuse the owner of this circus of any kind of a phony displays, as we're going to soon find out with this. But I'm going to let TJ talk a little bit about this first.
Okay. Well, it's from a script from George Romero, so that's few and far between, even though he's sort of producing the series. And Michael Gornick, who did Creepshow 2, directed this episode. So it's about this reporter who's he's popular at debunking, as he puts it, debunking charlatans. And he comes to this sideshow circus called Dr. Nice's Exhibition of Wonder. And he meets up with the owner, played by William Hickey from, he's in the Tales from the Crypt episode, The Switch, with that Arnold Schwarzenegger directed. And he's also in Christmas Vacation, and he's been in a ton of movies.
And wasn't he in which one was the cat from hell?
Yeah, he's in the Creep Show. I'm the Tales from the Darkside movie. Yeah,
that was it.
The cat from hell episode. Yep. So he's German or Transylvanian. The accent was good, but I wasn't sure what it was from.
You're right.
So he kind of shows up, and it's this kind of like, it's a sideshow that's put up, so it's kind of dirty and it doesn't look exciting. And he makes comments about how it doesn't have the usual things like the gypsy tent for the fortune teller and all those things that make it look interesting. It looks just like he's not too thrilled with it. And the owner tells him, well, my circus sideshow is a little different. And he's like, well, you're promising creatures and vampires, and it's for the kids. Bring your kids with you. And he gets introduced to his, well, he has sort of one of those tall, brooding assistants who barely talks and grunts, and you see those in those old Hammer films and old Universal type movie type of character. And we see the first attraction in the show, and it's a vampire. And he also, William Hickey also calls it a succubus, which I thought was female, but I guess it doesn't matter in this story. So I was like, okay, succubus, fine. And he feeds on a live lamb. So the writer, what the hell's his name? Mr. Bragg. Huh, Mr. Bragg, that fits.
It does fit.
Because he's like, I'm a great writer and all this stuff, and he talks very like he's a writer, very poetically. Like his words are more important than anybody else's, and he's has a lot of the $5 words he throws in there. And he's like, you show this to children? And he's like, well, we feed the creature in the morning. So during the day, we just give him little meals. So when we have a show, he eats a rat or a snake.
Right.
So the guy's just disgusted with this. And then we see, as advertised when he arrives, that they have live wild dogs, or alive wild dogs is what they call them. So we have these Transylvanian coyote, German Shepherd, police dog kind of things, kind of attacking, but to sort of to keep the creatures at bay. Because as what's one of William Hickey's quotes is where is it? I wrote it down somewhere. He says, none of our performers are 100% reliable.
You gotta love William Hickey in this.
Yes. I mean, he's got his own accent to begin with. Oh, also, he does the professor on in A Nightmare Before Christmas. I forgot about that one.
Oh, yeah.
So we also get introduced to we get the dogs, we get the vampire, we get introduced to a I lost track of what it was. Let's see.
Is it some kind of like, I don't know if he calls it a reanimated corpse, but
yeah, it's like he's like it's like a Frankenstein.
Mm-hmm.
It's very Bride of Reanimator type, like the parts are very mismatched and it's very clunky. It looks very much like it's like I think the Peter Cushing Frankenstein. I forget which one that was. The kind of reminded me of that type of thing. Herman Munster, but like Herman Munster, like if they got his parts at the local dump type of situation. Then he gets introduced to a werewolf,
Mm-hmm.
who's just kind of a scruffy looking guy with like dirty teeth, and the assistant hands him this big piece of like side of beef. It's kind of dripping, and he grabs it, and the guy's like, well, this isn't what you promised. And then William Hickey goes, lycanthropy is not a condition that can be perfectly timed. And then he gets introduced to a mummy, which is sort of a zombie mummy, just kind of laying there. The face kind of moves and the eye winks, but it's just kind of, it's there. And then he sort of, William Hickey changes and he's sort of dressed So because it's getting close to showtime, and they have a little conversation, and the guy's just like, this is disgusting, and this is, this is, all these acts are unpardonable, he says. And it's oh, there's the funny part when the dogs come out and start growling, barking at him. He throws a notebook at one of the dogs, and it's a shot of the dogs getting hit in the head with the notebook. And I was like, that's a little, that wasn't CGI, and that wasn't like a stunt dog that was like alive. And I was like, how did they get away with that on television? I mean, it was, wow. But so after William Hickey is sort of like, telling the guy off, saying, he says, he explains why he's sort of showing these creatures and why he's bringing children involved. He says, what, I actually wrote that down. When did I write that? Maybe I didn't write it down. God, I love the quote too, and I can't freaking find it. He basically says, you have to learn. You should learn at a young age that there are horrors in the world, and if you're desensitized a little bit when you're younger, when you see them in the future, you won't be sort of like, you won't. Well, that sort of gets into the spoiler at the end of the. But so anyway, you can talk a little bit about.
This was an episode actually that had to grow on me a little bit. I like it a lot better now than I did a few years back. And now I don't know what really has changed other than I've gotten older. Maybe that's it. That I can appreciate it more. And it is, I mean, it does have some creepy elements in it, including William Hickey. I think William Hickey is very creepy in this episode. Just his mannerisms and the way he speaks to the reporter or journalist or whatever you want to call him. And I also really liked the look of the vampire.
That was Ed French who did the.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
He was the devil in the Trick or Treat episode.
Because that was a unique look for a vampire. I'll just say that. But it was also like extra creepy in a way that
his eyes and just the. There's a point where he's like, are those real fangs, or is there a knife behind the, is there a blade behind there somewhere? And the vampire, he opens his mouth so wide to show him, like, nope, this ain't fake teeth.
But when he first comes out of the coffin, when they first let him out, just Ed French really took on that character really well, because he's just like that, and he sees the reporter. And he's just like, oh, food, He's just getting all excited like a dog that you've just set a bowl of food down in front of. He's just ravenous. And then, William Hickey kind of pats the vampire on the shoulder and says, not him, and then that's when he gives him the lamb. Which you could tell that he wasn't really, chowing down on that lamb. And it looked more like they just maybe sedated the lamb just a little bit. But it was adorable until he started like kind of gnawing on it, or whatever you want to call it.
I mean, when they hit the dog in the face with a notebook, they could have just killed the lamb.
Exactly.
Yeah. They put them on craft services at the end of the day.
Those dogs, when they showed their faces up close, they looked like my dogs. I mean, in the face, their expressions and stuff, they did not look like vicious dogs in any way, shape, or form. So yeah, that's another thing. Why would you I'm like TJ. Why did they have to have that in there where he throws something at the poor dog? I mean, there's
And it's done in
really.
a close up, so they had to prepare that shot, so it wasn't an accident.
Mm, it's a wonder that dog didn't get a little pissed off at him for doing that. But of course, I'm sure they were well trained dogs, and maybe who knows? Maybe they're used to having things thrown at them. I don't know.
This is
Um,
one of the, I think, the most gory and violent of any of the Tales from the Darkside episodes. I mean,
yeah, I would agree. I mean,
and the
there's
ending is pretty violent too.
yes,
We can get this if we when we want to get the spoilers, we can do that.
yeah, yeah, very. I think a unique ending, pretty much, even for Tales from the Dark Side episodes.
Yes.
Because the first time I saw it, I don't know exactly what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting what we're going to talk about when we talk about the spoilers.
Yeah.
But I will say again that this episode grew on me, and I really enjoy it now, and really, I guess, appreciate it more, even more so than when I was a kid and watched these episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so, with that being said, I'm going to turn it back over to TJ for the ultimates in spoilers. So, for those of you that don't want to hear spoilers, here's your chance to plug your ears.
So after William Hickey's speech, basically saying, to show children and because he's like he says he makes a comment that if you believe in a ghost and see it, it's less unnerving, and if you don't believe in something and then you're coming face to face with the reality that exists, and that there would be bad consequences. Well, Bragg gets after that. Bragg sort of the the Frankenstein monster whose head had fallen off. The arms kind of attached. It's very Reanimator. Dr. West. I mean, Dr. What's his face? Dr.
Oh, yeah.
What the hell's
Golly, I didn't think I would forget that. I'll probably think of it about midnight
anybody in the
tonight.
chat want to? If there's anybody, no, whatever. Okay. Hill, Dr. Hill. There we
Yeah. Yeah. How did
Anyway.
I forget that? I'm losing it.
And it's very much like that too, because you can tell the shoulders is somebody's head and the arms are not the length that they should be. But anyway, it grabs onto him and he basically dies of fright.
Yeah.
For coming. And that's not just a twist ending. So we're at the end of it. It's the show. And we're seeing everybody in their cages and the vampires snarling and the werewolf's now a werewolf finally. And all the creatures are there. And we come to the final attraction. And some of the dialogue William Hickey says is, "Come face to face with the marvel of the experimental component parts of the dead." And we see our reanimated corpse, which now has the head of Mr. Bragg. So Mr. Bragg has now become part of the circus and the exhibits. And and that's the end of this story. And that's a pretty, even with the fake arms and stuff, it's pretty brutal ending. And the way he kind of like gasps for air and just I mean, it's pretty good. And this guy, his acting is very like I said, he's very boisterous, so it comes off kind of fake. But I think that's supposed to be what he is. He's a fake because he's really once he comes face to face with something, he's it's not a joke anymore. It's not it's not bunk or lurid fiction and stuff like that, which is what he called it at the beginning. So
yeah, really great episode. I just wanted to say that again, and I think TJ respects it as an episode and a worthy entry into the Tales from
first episode of the third season. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it pretty much the third season kicked it off with a bang. with this episode, which I can't say about some of these other episodes we're going to be talking about this season. Not all of them, but there are a few.
The second half of the season is a little bit worse than the first. I think I find regoing over the first season, the first episodes of the first half. I like a lot of it. There's one episode I didn't remember until I rewatched it. I was like, oh, okay, but I was like, how can I not remember? But then again, it was more like, well, I think we're gonna get to that in this half. But anyway, that's the circus.
So the next episode, moving along to the next episode, is I Can't Help Saying Goodbye.
This is a spooky episode.
It is spooky, and I do enjoy it. The only drawback, and I'll say this real quick before I turn it over to TJ, the only drawback for me to this episode is how weak some of the acting is in this. Now, I know Tales from Darkside was television. It was classic television, and they had many, many different actors and actresses in these episodes. But I will say the character of the older sister and her fiance are some of the worst I've ever seen. The little girl in this is a lot better than those two. But I'm going to turn it over to TJ to give you the rundown on this episode.
Do you remember that show in the 90s, Dream On? Do you remember that show? It was on like HBO or Showtime. Yeah. The boyfriend was the lead on that show. So he must have got better at acting.
He must have got better.
They gave him a series that he starred in. And,
exactly.
So, yeah. So it's about, we have Karen and Libby and their mother, Flora, and Libby is marrying Max, her boyfriend, who is also he teaches choir. So it's right. I guess it's for the church, right, or school. I don't know.
Yeah, they sing religious songs pretty much when you see like the younger sister and her friend singing at one point. They're singing.
And I think it's Christmas time. Is it Christmas time, or am I thinking that's not? Or am I wrong?
I can't remember now. And I just rewatched this last night, so I should be able to remember.
I rewatched it for a couple hours ago.
It may have been. It was at least winter time. I will say that.
All right, so so they're having dinner, and the mother's in the kitchen cooking, and they're just doing the family stuff. So it's very like introducing the character type of situation, and kind of out of the blue, little Karen kind of trances over. Her eyes sort of glass over, and she sort of gets into a trance, and she goes and hugs her mother and she says very creepily, goodbye, mother, goodbye. And the mother goes in the kitchen, and there's a setup earlier that the pilot light in the stove is a little messed up. So she goes in there, and I guess she turns on the thing, and there's too much gas going through. And when she finally lights the match, the whole kitchen blows up. It's not funny, but talking about it.
Yeah. Well, and some of the, of course, guys, keep in mind the time period that this was, which was 1986, I believe. This episode was October 5th, 1986 was when it first came out.
Yeah.
And so the special effects were not top of the line at that point in time. So I'm with TJ. It is, I mean, even the execution of it is funny. It wouldn't have been
like
funny.
2 doors just kind of break.
Exactly.
I think because they couldn't afford to blow up a full kitchen. So
and they look like oversized dollhouse doors going.
Yeah, I mean, the TV budget is what they can do.
Exactly.
But just the idea of oh, the pilot light went out, and then she lights on the fire. There was a prior episode where the same things happened with the with cause and effect and cause. That episode back a season ago, or whatever. But yeah, so it's after it's the wake. They're at the house. Everybody's in black. Everybody's depressed, except Max is sort of. Max starts off fine, but then all of a sudden he kind of becomes a dick.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. He becomes a dick all of a sudden.
And I don't understand why all this, like he's sort of like comforting Libby, and he's like, your mother would. She asks, "Oh, was I a good daughter?" And he's like, "Yeah, of course your mother loved you," and all this stuff. And then he starts making fun of. He just starts becoming a jerk at that point. He starts talking about how Karen was saying goodbye and how it was weird that right before the mother died that Karen had all of a sudden turned weird on everybody.
And why would somebody why would somebody make fun of that in a situation like that when somebody's just died?
Yeah, and even when she says, I mean, there's a part where the girls are depressed and he says a joke to lighten the mood. That was good, but then right after that, he becomes a creepy jerk, and it's like I think they're trying to set up not liking him. But anyway, well that comes later. So yeah, they're getting on with their lives, and then there's another day after it's.
Uh-oh. TJ's frozen. May have to re-add him back. Oh, let's see here. TJ, if you can hear me, I'm going to try removing you. I don't know. Let's see if TJ can add himself back. TJ said he has trouble connecting. Okay, there he is. He's back. You were
I was going to come back in a weird pose, but anyway. Yes. So the two girls are rehearsing some religious song for the thing, and Max is a little sick, and he's having trouble.
Uh-oh. Texas, you said welcome back. Just when he froze a little bit, I thought TJ was going to freeze for good.
I did. They don't want us talking about this episode.
Evidently, somebody doesn't. StreamYard must not want us talking about it.
Let me talk faster. So they're rehearsing, and Max is kind of mean to them and out of character. I'm like, well, he's just becoming a jerk. Partly, I'm guessing maybe he's sort of feeling weird about what happened a little bit, but then what happens next? It's a snowy night and it's kind of slippery out there, and Libby's like, "Oh, Max, maybe you should stay over." Meanwhile, Karen's friend Susie, is it Susie?
Sounds
I think
right.
her friend. Yeah, it must be. Yeah, Susie. Susie's parents or they're gonna go take her to her parents' house because she lives like close to the house. So Karen goes into her trance again, and she says, "Goodbye to Susie."
Mm-hmm.
And Susie goes out, slips and falls, and we find out and breaks her neck. We don't see that, but we hear it through the dialogue. We get the exposition, and that makes Max even more freaked out. Now he's kind of afraid of Karen, and the sister's trying to smooth things out and trying to make things sound like no, nothing's crazy. It's fine. Well, then it's Max's turn. Well, Now here's where Karen says the goodbye stuff to Max, but it looks like she's kidding. Right? Doesn't that happen?
Well, I think at one point she just basically says it because she was angry.
Because she was hearing them talk about her and
sending her to boarding school or something like that, because Max is acting even more like a dick and basically says it's not a good time to marry Libby. And she's all upset. Oh, we'll send her off to boarding school.
Yeah. But Max dies.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm like, at this point, I'm like, he's dead. He was kind of a dick.
It was like that too. It's like, oh, well, that's what you get for being a dick.
and then Libby starts yelling at Karen and was like, why did you say goodbye to me? And she's like, I didn't mean to do it. I didn't, I had no control, basically. She's a little girl, so, I mean, she can't really articulate it to her sister. And, that's where I'll stop because the rest of it's the twist. So.
Right. So, again, I agree with TJ wholeheartedly that this is a very creepy episode. A little bit of a darker episode. I mean, actually, these first 2 episodes of this season are pretty dark. The
circus wasn't light at all.
And the next episode we're going to talk about here in a little bit is a little bit lighter, or quite a bit lighter than these 2. But I like the episode very much overall. I just, did not care for, I guess I didn't care for Libby and Max's characters, I guess. Mainly Max, because he acts like such a turd at a certain point. And, but I liked the little girl that played Karen. And TJ do you know if she was in anything else? Because she almost looks like she could have been in some sitcoms or some other television type of shows.
Allison Sweeney, she was in a few things, mostly TV. She seemed to be in some kind of series I never saw. This wedding series, she's in like every episode of it. She produced a lot. I think she must have. These must be those like Hallmark Channel movies from the titles: A Weddingville Journey, A Magical Christmas Village.
Yeah, that definitely sounds.
It seems like
stuff that my mom would watch probably.
Murder She Baked. That sounds terrible.
That sounds like it was based on one of those murder mystery books that have like baking as a background thing, or sewing. I think is there were different things there for a while with some of these murder mystery books. Blissful says, wasn't she in Days of Our Lives? I'm not sure because I never watched Days of Our Lives, Blissful. That was one soap opera I didn't watch.
I don't see any credits for that. Oh, yep, she was. She was in Days of Our Lives. I don't know who she played. She played Sammy Brady. I don't know who that is. Sammy
Brady. Oh.
I don't know.
Yes, Blissful. Cozy mysteries. That's what those are.
Oh, she was in an episode of Friends. That's interesting. I don't know which one. Which one was she in? The one with Joey's Award. I don't remember that one.
I've seen a few episodes of Friends. I used to watch it every time I would go visit my cousin at college when she was still in college, because that was at the time she was in college. Friends was really big, and people would get in big groups and watch it all the time.
But she grew up pretty. I mean, that's a plus. I don't think the one who played her sister did much. Yeah, she didn't do much, and they're both in another episode next season, but we'll wait till we get to that one.
Bliss, will you say I stopped after they had a face transplant on an amnesiac? Oh, man.
People were dying before, like those the two, that show with the two brothers. They were dying. People were dying and coming back to life years ago before on non-horror movie soap operas. I mean,
Right. Yeah. I mean, soap operas got kind of ridiculous. Just about all of them got pretty ridiculous at some point in time. I remember All My Children, when Janet from Another Planet was on there. That's what they called her. Natalie's crazy sister that put her down in the well. I remember my parents, my dad was working nights at that time. So he really got into the soap operas because he could watch them during the day when my mom was watching them. And I remember both of them just being immersed in the whole Natalie in the well, and Janet looked exactly like Natalie. I guess they were twins. I can't really remember the logistics of it, but
yeah.
so everybody thought Janet was Natalie, and meanwhile Natalie was down the well. But that was a big deal back then.
And this was written by women. We had some women. Woman wrote the story, and woman wrote the script. Who wrote some? She wrote the one who wrote the script for this. Wrote the Adrienne Barbeau Monsters episode that I like. The All in a Day's Work or whatever that was called.
Yeah.
At the time. I don't know what they felt about.
I don't know what happened.
I don't really like guys because they killed off the mother's single. There's no mention of the father at all, and then the boyfriend's sort of a dick.
Actually, there is a mention of the father at the
I forgot. Okay.
beginning. The mother is telling the daughter about
gravity. It's about gravity they're talking about. Okay.
That scared me for a second. I thought,
scared me too. I thought I broke the phone.
Oh man, I hope everything's okay. Anyway, you're catching what Darren had on New Year's Eve, where his phone.
But I'm sober.
Yeah, exactly. You're not on vodka or anything. So. Oh, anyway.
Yeah. So
Blissful says I need the super glue, TJ.
Send me some. My address. No, I'm not telling you my address. Anyway.
Oh gosh, now I don't even remember what I was saying.
So this talk earlier were about Karen's birthday, and she had said to her friend, "Oh, I'm getting a bathing suit because I guess she's waiting for the local pool. That's it. She wants to go to the local pool, and so it's after the boyfriend's dead, and we see Karen in her bathing suit getting ready to go to the water park or wherever they're going, and she's staring into the mirror, and she's in a trance, and she doesn't say anything, but we see her sister Libby in the other room, and she has, because Karen doesn't know how to swim, she's got a little inflatable tube, and she's slowly pouring sand with a funnel into the tube. So we're switching back and forth between the two sisters, and every time we see Karen, we see the water in the mirror kind of rise up, and Libby's not crying, but she's almost crying, and she's upset because she's afraid of her sister, and the ending is she's gonna kill her sister.
Yeah, what a dark ending.
And Karen looks in the mirror and says, "Goodbye, Karen. Goodbye." Yeah. And it's over.
Very, very eerie. But, I really don't want to know how this would work if somebody did decide to kill somebody by putting sand in an inner tube. But
Yeah, it was. If it's gonna slowly sink, wouldn't you notice by the time it was
Yeah,
at a
that's
level where it
what
was?
I was wondering. I was like, would this work or not if somebody really wanted to kill somebody that way? Um, so I
Anybody
was
out there
kind of
want to try it, and
skeptical.
will get back to us what happens?
Oh boy, yeah. Maybe,
No, I
maybe,
don't.
maybe don't put
The
a real
joke.
person in there. Put a mannequin or something in there and see what happens. Don't.
Edit this part out.
We don't want to give anybody ideas on how to get rid of people.
Or
uh,
just go up to your chest and then sort of dunk down and then see what happens. Yeah, I don't think she would get deep enough and not notice there was something up, but
yeah, that something was a little weighted, a little too weighted in the inner tube, but um yeah, so that's Can't Help Saying Goodbye. I think
But I was
maybe
gonna say I wanted to say one more thing, but I do like that thing that it's like there's no control over what's going on because, like I said, Karen's in a trance. She can't articulate what's going on, and I would think to get deeper into it would be. I would like to see a longer version of this where we get deeper into what's going on, because I think by the second time something happened, you would sort of try to figure out what was going on instead of just letting. Because that's the thing, they sort of just are passive about it, even with the
yeah,
jerk boyfriend sort of calling things out and sort of saying there's something going on. They're not really all on the page and like trying to figure out
yeah.
why is Karen having these
Mm,
things. But it's a short story, so we don't get any of that. So
right. You're right though. Nobody really tries to connect the dots
yeah.
anyway. Um, yeah, it probably. I'm like TJ. I would have wanted to see it be a longer. I mean, what if they expanded it to 45 minutes or something? Instead of 20, what, 21, 22 minutes.
And I think they
Um,
would have built up Max a little bit better to his crescendo of his character instead of
yeah, they would have
all of a
had more.
sudden the next scene he's an asshole. And it's like I mean, I'm like
Yeah.
that, but that's different.
Oh. So,
I'm kidding.
uh, moving along to the next episode, which is, like I said, quite a bit lighter, um, pretty much comedic when compared to these first two episodes. And this is The Bitterest Pill, starring oh gosh, Mark Blanken, is it Blankenship? Is it, or am I pronouncing that wrong?
Blankfield,
Blankfield. That I knew it was blank something.
who's mostly a comedian,
And was also in Jekyll and Hyde. Was it Jekyll and Hyde Together Again or something
yeah,
like that?
he's in
And
he's in
really crazy.
he's in Dracula Dead and Loving It. He's like the
Ah.
Renfield.
Oh, yeah, he'd be perfect.
No, he's no, wait a minute. Is he the wait a minute? No, no, I'm sorry. He's like he's the guard at the asylum type. That's
Oh,
who
but
he is.
that's good too, though.
And
That
he's in
would be
Robin Hood Men in Tights. He's the blind guy.
okay.
And there was an '80s sitcom called Sledgehammer he was on too. I remember that show.
Oh yes, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, haven't seen it in God knows when, but a funny thing about that show, sometimes when you look up horror movies on Amazon,
Mm-hmm.
because there is a shot on video movie called
Oh,
Sledgehammer, that show Sledgehammer comes up under the horror movie sometimes. And I used to think, why is the Sledgehammer television show coming up under this? And then I remembered, oh, yeah, there's that shot on video movie that's not very good, by the way, in case you guys have never seen it.
it's not.
No, it's that and Boarding House are not good films, people, but I like to torture myself with them sometimes and watch them anyway because of their
Uncle
so.
Bill says hi to you, Dana.
Hey, Uncle Bill.
He's Uncle Bill of Dead Pit Manor. I guess they have a mansion now. That's nice. They live
Or
right
at least
behind.
Uncle Bill has one.
They live right beside the dead meat guy in his mansion with his wife.
Oh gosh.
He must have a mansion. He's got like 10 million followers. If he doesn't have a buck from, if he had a buck from half of each of his followers, he'd be fine.
I don't know. Isn't that the guy that John says is like basically a piece of shit? Well, maybe he didn't say
I don't know.
but,
I don't know
but
him personally. I don't, you know.
he's not real good at what he does, but he has a lot of followers. I think
I
that's
find him entertaining. I used to watch. He has his he does the kill counts, and he does sort of a review and behind the scenes. I like that he shows a lot of behind the scenes stuff too in his videos. But then him and his wife do a podcast where they have the video of it on the channel also, which I like. I haven't been able to watch any of the episodes recently because they've been doing movies I haven't seen yet. So I'm like, well, I can't watch these episodes.
Oh yeah, well that makes sense.
But anyway, the bitterest pill. All right, let's see. Mark Blankfield. It has. Who is this guy? I don't even know who this guy is. Anyway, there's a bunch of people. There's a bunch of actors in this episode.
The one that plays the dad seems familiar, and the person that plays the mother seems familiar as well. And even the kid seems familiar. He may have been
on. The kid I've seen in a bunch of things. The father, he was in some stuff, but he didn't really, he didn't star in anything that I've seen.
Is it just me, or does the young boy seem like he should be one of the Lawrence brothers? Like with Joey Lawrence and all of
them? Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I can see what you're saying. Mm-hmm. He was in the Willies. Have you seen that movie, The Willies?
Yes, I love that movie. I have it on DVD actually.
Mm-hmm. He did a lot of TV shows and he was on the show Small Wonder. Ever see that show with the girl who's a robot, the young girl, and she's
I know of it, but I don't think I've ever watched it.
And she talks like this. I'm not a robot. I'm a real girl. Okay, sure. That sounds real.
Sure, you're a real girl.
So anyway, it's about this family, and it's a typical family. The husband, wife, and they have fights, and the father's sort of lazy. And you get the rambunctious kid who just wants to go out and play and whatever, and he causes trouble, and they'll go to your room.
The dad is kind of mean to him. He calls him a shrimp, and
yeah, they're like they're he's a heightened. He's not abusive. Mm-hmm. He's not like the monsters in my room dad. That guy was a.
Oh yeah, that guy was scary.
But he's sort of he's sort of lazy. Like I don't think he. It doesn't look like the dad went to work or anything. But anyway, so they win the lottery. And they're trying to figure out what to do with their money. And the wife kind of is buying new clothes. And they're talking about maybe we should go out and do stuff. But they're sort of in their house. And they're like, well, we don't have to do anything because we're rich.
Mm-hmm. So, and people keep calling on asking them for money for different things.
Yeah, so she keeps answering the phone, and there's just like, I'm sick of answering the phone because people just want to try to sell us stuff. And she's like, no, we don't want to buy that. And they take the phone off the hook and hide it behind the couch. So a friend of hers comes to visit, a friend of the family, but more of a friend of the wife, Tinker, played by Mark Blankfeld. And he's sort of a hyper... He's sort of a smart guy, so I guess he's a genius.
Yeah.
But we find out why he's so much of a genius is because he's developed this pill that sort of opens the brain, and you remember everything that you've ever learned or anything you read one thing 10 years ago, and it's in his memory, and it's sort of like, I don't know, people know Mary Lou Henner has a memory where she can remember everything from her life as the youngest she can remember, and she remembers everything vividly like she's there. Like she knows like what something felt like and where something was in the corner of the, so he sort of has this brain where he can kind of remember everything.
But it
And
gives
he's
him
trying to,
major headaches, though.
yeah, he gets these weird headaches and his head shakes once in a while. And he's sort of hyper and
He has
like,
this one scene where he's just going, "Eh, eh, eh," like that, like
yeah.
he's having some kind of spasm.
There's a part where the husband's like, get away from me. And he just like jumps up next to the wife and is like, so, can I have $100,000? And he's like, I just want $100,000. And the husband, it looks like that they might have been in a prior relationship. So the husband sort of like, get away from my wife. I don't want you here. And she's like, well, maybe we should do this because, we want to do something with the money we have, and let's do this. He doesn't want that much. We have millions of dollars. What's $100,000? She's like, what does a couple $100,000 mean at this point? And the husband's just like, no, we want all the money. And I'm like, you're not even using it. I don't know. But so he has the guy has the pills, which is what he takes to make his brain work extra overtime. And yeah, I mean, the rest of it's kind of the twist. Two twists, kind of, but go ahead.
Well, I like this episode. I could see where some people might find it a little annoying, especially Tinker's character. They may think that's a little over the top. Him bouncing around, like I hate to say this, and I'm not trying to be offensive, but like a kid
Don't
with
say it then.
ADHD or something,
You can say ADHD. You don't have to say it.
But a hyperactive child, I guess,
Yeah,
is
yeah.
the best way that you could say that Tinker is acting, because he virtually has no control over himself. And I think he even explains it that his brain is expanding at such a rapid rate that that's why he gets these severe headaches, and he can't really think clearly. So when he wants an aspirin for his headache, he gives the big long technical term for it, and the mother or the wife says, "Oh, you want an aspirin, don't you, Tinker?" And he's like, "Uh-huh," and so, but he reads out the acetaminophen plus, all those other little things that are in aspirin. Hey,
Yeah,
Rooster.
the show that he read a bottle of aspirin at one point, and now that's in his memory.
It's stuck
That's
in
being
his
unleashed.
head. Right. So I just like this very light, over the top dynamic after we had to deal with two such dark episodes before this one. I thought it was nice you got to have some of these lighter episodes, in my opinion. I think if you didn't, I don't think Tales from the Darkside would have worked nearly as well if every single one of the episodes had been really, really dark,
Yeah.
or, sinister, creepy, whatever you want to say about them. So, you know, TJ was talking about the parents, or the father especially, is not really abusive, and I agree. He's not he's not going to win Father of the Year or anything like that, and he's probably not going to get a good Father's Day present for the way he acts.
Well, they're
But
rich. He can buy his own
yeah,
Father's Day
exactly.
present.
But the description on my DVD actually says a mistreated boy turns the tables on his abusive parents. It actually says that his parents are abusive, and
I mean,
it also refers to Tinker as the eccentric uncle, and he's not the uncle. He's just a friend of the boy's mother from the past. I don't think he's ever mentioned as it being an uncle.
I think people write these who don't really watch these episodes. They're just writing blurbs for the box covers
Right.
or the
They've
engine,
got
whatever.
it.
Yeah, I don't. You can't trust because people don't watch them. They just go, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, they just either that or they just skim through them and make
Yeah,
assumptions based on what they've skimmed through. Um, it's like having a movie on fast forward or something. You don't truly get what you should out of the movie
I think it's
like that.
heightened because it's a Tales from the Darkside and it's fantasy TV. I don't think
Mm.
I mean, the parents are, yeah, they're the dad's yelling at the kid, but it could have been worse.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been like the stepfather in Monsters in My Room, like
Yeah, that
TJ.
guy was emasculating that kid. This wasn't that. This was just like the kids being annoying and the parents are, shut up. I mean,
He's
that's what
throwing
happened
a
when I was a
bas
kid. My parents didn't
he
say, "No, be quiet and
he's
think
like,
about what you
"Shut
did."
up."
And no, they're like, "Shut up and get out of here." That's how parents worked when I was a
Well,
kid. So, uh,
my mom and dad are very good. They were very good parents. They're still very good parents. But my dad would take enough of us horsing around when he was trying to watch television or something.
mhm.
And, dad worked through the week and he would have the weekends off, but by God, his weekends were going to be his weekends. And we were going to run around there and act like idiots without him saying something. So eventually he would say, either y'all knock it off and sit down and watch TV and be quiet, or you go to your room so I can enjoy this, whatever he was watching, sports or a movie or, Western, whatever he was watching. Um, but so even the best parents can get annoyed with their children
Yeah,
and say, shut up or leave the room or,
yeah.
and you can't call them abusive like that. So I'm
Anyway,
gonna I'm gonna move it back over to TJ to talk about the twist to this one.
okay, I forgot. They when the family gets rich, they hire a police like a private police officer to kind of like watch over their house. So they're like, throw. So the husband throws out the friend, and he drops the thing of pills that fall on the floor, and they like
Yeah.
the kids upstairs are like, "Can I come out of my room?" And they're like, "No." And then they finally like, "Okay, fine." And then they come down, and the mother's like, "Could you clean up the mess that just
Uh-huh.
happened?" And then we turn away from the kid from a bit, and the parents are like, "Let's do something. Let's fly. Let's go somewhere. They're like, let's have some fun. Let's use our money. Let's do something." And then we hear the kid. They're like, "Let's go to a play, and we'll take a flight to New York, and blah blah
Yeah.
blah." And then we hear the kid rattling off the phone numbers, and this is when you should call, and this is you can do this, and you can do that. And we find out that he ate the pills,
Mm-hmm.
and it made him smart. Now that's the first twist. The second twist is the end of the episode where we find out that Tinker is dead. The kid alludes, or it basically says that his mind couldn't handle it, but
Right.
the little kid's brain can handle it because his brain is still growing, so he can
Mm-hmm.
handle the drug better. And he basically turns the table on his mother and father, where he's now the parent. He's running everything, which
Yeah.
it's a cool ending. But then I'm thinking, they won money. Why is the kid in control of the money now? Where he's like,
Yeah.
he's basically the parents are stuck in the house. They can't travel anywhere. They don't have a car. They're not even. He doesn't even allow them to have cable television. He brings them food,
Yeah.
and now the
They don't get to
security guard
leave
is
the
now his
house alone.
security, and it's like, I think it's a cool ending, but sort of thinking about it, it's like this kind of is a weird, makes no sense kind of situation. But
Yeah. And too, the kid has written a book called The Bitterest Pill.
yes,
And that's what he gives them to read. He said, here, you can read a book.
and he's like in a suit and tie, and I'm like, so you're super smart, and all of this, and that means you have to wear a suit and tie. I guess back in the '80s, they're just trying to visually show you the kid is now an adult, basically.
I'm wondering if I don't think they mention it specifically, but I'm guessing that the kid maybe emancipated himself, went to court and did that, and then somehow he became his parents' legal guardian. How he did that, I don't know, because
Yeah.
obviously they're not mentally deficient in any way. He might have been able to get emancipated, but I don't think he would have been able to become their legal guardian like
Well, the
that.
point is, he's so smart that he made his own money and he has his own businesses, but they still won the lottery. How does that money not theirs anymore? That was a weird plot
Right.
hole that I thought, but yeah.
But I guess better not to think too deeply into it.
Yeah. It wasn't like Scream 6's plot holes, but I'm not going to talk about that much.
Oh, but anyway, moving right along to the next episode, and we're back to a little bit darker territory again with this one. This
is pretty dark, I'd say.
Yes. We're back in the dark basement again with Florence Bravo. And I'll let TJ talk a little bit about this one. This has an alumni of Day of the Dead in this as well.
Laurie Cardilli.
Yep.
Chili Billy Cardilli's daughter.
Yep.
You know, the reporter in Night of the Living Dead, who was he was a horror host back in the 60s or whatever it was. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's about this couple that he's the husband's a teacher. She's like a housewife, but she's also like an artist. And I don't know if she's a teacher or not. I forget. But that's incidental to the story. They get moved into this house, and the realtor tells them about a woman who had lived there, who murdered her husband. And when they found the body, they told her, and she's like, "Oh well, that's how it goes." I'm paraphrasing, but she was very flippant about it. And they say she hated men, and we sort of get away from that, and we just concentrate on the couple and their relationship. And she's sort of like, he's going out to work, and she's sort of staying in the house, because it's an older house, so they're sort of redoing the rooms and changing things around. They noticed this is a little later. They noticed some of the floorboards have been replaced, and we find out that that's where the wife murdered her husband, because they couldn't get the blood stains out, so they decided to change the floor. And there's a part where he's like, "Well, this is another thing we should redo, is the floor." So anyway,
didn't you get a hint that the husband had an affair in the past, and so
no, they come out and say it.
Did they kind of? I couldn't recall really if they came out and said that he did,
because she was away. She had gone to a home because she had psychological issues from the affair that he had, and so that's part of their moving. Also, was to kind of fix what had happened, and sort of move on with their lives and do something else and think of other things, and instead of concentrating on what had happened. So it's kind of a little it's obviously dark side that they move into a house where someone killed her husband, where the woman, the husband was cheating. Well, she thought her husband was cheating on her. I mean, we only know secondhand information, but so there's a point in the story where I forget which one of them it happened to first, but the husband sort of, the realtor sort of walks over the floorboards and faints, and he sort of carries her off, and the wife is a little suspicious. And also there's a point where the husband also kind of almost faints, where he walks over the floorboards. So after the first incident with the floorboards, we see that the title, Florence Bravo, we hear her. While the wife is sort of fixing the house, we hear her voice. And then after the second time with the floorboards, we see a ghost or a spirit that the wife sees of the ghost, and she's telling her, look, don't trust your husband.
Mm-hmm.
And all men are like my husband. You can't trust any man. It's a very men suck episode.
Basically, yeah. This is a women power episode of Tales from the Darkside.
Yeah, but we have two incidents where the parents cheat. The husband cheats on the wife with another woman. So there's a point where the husband comes back from a day of classes, and the wife makes a joke about, "Oh, are there any pretty girls in your class?" And he's like, "I don't think that's funny." And she's like, "I was kidding, trying to make a light of the situation," because he's like, we have to move on from this. And she thought that was appropriate, which I probably wasn't. But
she's
she
still
sort of
bitter, though. She's bitter, TJ. She's a very bitter woman.
I mean, yeah, she gets to a point where they're in bed and he touches her and she's like, "Is that all you want is sex?" And then he pulls away, and then she's like, "Oh, now you're not attracted to me?" I'm like, okay, she's really like,
yeah. Wasn't the line? What didn't she say? We don't have to be naked all the time. I thought that was kind of
something like that. Yeah, it's
funny.
yeah.
But of course, this was TV, so if it had been a movie, the F word probably would have been used. I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Well, after Day of the Dead and her language in that one, I'm sure she wanted to swear a lot in this movie. Yeah, so the ghost keeps telling her all these things, and she's believing them more and more as the days go on. And she basically thinks he's having an affair with the realtor. So the realtor and him are like having a private conversation while the wife's upstairs. Mm-hmm. And she hears part of the conversation where it's like, he's like, I don't want to be here anymore, and I want to leave. And she's like, "Oh yeah, you haven't told." He's like, "You haven't told her yet." And she's like, "She's been through a lot. I don't want to tell her." So she's like, "Oh, he's cheating on me." So she goes and leaves the room, and then we hear the rest of the conversation. He just wants to move to a different house, and she's trying to find them another place to live because she's a realtor. They're not having an affair.
Right. And they're not having an affair, but I always felt like that realtor was skating on some pretty thin ice. Like, I think she wanted to sleep with that guy.
I don't think she did anything besides, because we're seeing things from the wife's point of view.
So it might be a little.
Yeah, it might be you're getting from her point of view to what the husband's doing. And I mean, she's a good actor. Lori Cadill is pretty good in this. Mm-hmm. So I think her convincing herself that things are going on. I don't really think there's anything overtly going on to think that he's really having an affair. Like I said, they have this conversation where it's like nothing's happening. I mean,
mm-hmm. But I could
see you could sort of see it, but
I was thinking there were some episodes where Laurie Cardill's character was not even around. It was just showing the realtor and the husband. And I just thought that the realtor was being sort of flirtatious, I guess. Maybe it was an innocent flirtation, but.
Is it realtor or realtor?
I don't know. I guess we could say it both ways, right?
I don't know. Some people get mad if you say it wrong. So anyway.
It's like advertisement or advertisement,
No, it's advertisement. There's no argument about that.
Well, I say it advertisement, but I know people that say advertisement.
If you're from Britain, you can say where they say almond in yeah. Get Darren to say almond. See how he says it. Your next stream with him, make sure he asks it. Okay. What are those oval nuts, Darren? Say that word. Anyway. So yeah, and yeah, and she goes back to Florence, and Florence is like, see, he's cheating on you. He wants to get rid of you. Maybe you should do something to get rid of him, is basically the thing.
Right.
And there's also the wife had shot, Florence Bravo had shot her husband, but the gun was never found.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so she thinks she's being cheated on, and the ghost is like, he's a man. He obviously cheated on you. There's no question about it. And that's it until the ending.
Yeah. I like this episode. Definitely, like I said earlier, in my opinion, it's a woman power or women empowerment type of episode. Even though we're dealing with some very dark thoughts, dark actions on the parts of women in this episode. I still like it though. I think the final scene of this episode, which I'm gonna turn it back over to TJ to talk about here in a minute, is especially. I don't know if it's supposed to be slightly heartwarming, but it's creepy nonetheless. That whole entire final scene. But I like this episode. I love Laurie Cardille in it. I think I don't want anybody to think I'm going to kill any men off because I like this episode. I'm not going to do anything like that. But I do like Laurie Cardille in it. I think she does an amazing job with her character. Well, who is the actress who played Florence Bravo in it, TJ? You know who that was?
I don't. Let me look her up. I was looking up the guy who played the husband. He was in Toby Hooper's Eaten Alive.
Oh.
He was the cowboy.
He wasn't in that. He wasn't in that movie Madhouse, was he?
You mean the Happy Birthday to Me remake?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Because there was a guy that looked similar to him, but I don't know if it was.
I don't think so. He was in Eve of Destruction. Have you seen that movie?
I know of it, but I don't think I've seen it. But that might have been one that Steve has seen, maybe.
So let's see. The Florence Bravo. Lauren Klein. Yeah. TV actress. All My Children. TV shows I've never heard of. Okay. She was on. She was on Law and Order. Oh, okay.
Okay.
And she's very. Her character is very like. Well, she's a ghost, so she's her delivery is very. I don't know how to describe it. Not deadpan, but she's very like exacting with her words, and the way she talks is very like she doesn't act like a vengeful ghost. She's like, he's evil and he should not be trusted because he's a man. She's not like stone cold character. Like she's not like she's not. I don't know how to describe it. She's not overly emotional. I think to play against Laurie's character, you'd have to be the opposite of her. So I think that's why it plays so well, because they're not the same character, and Laurie is doing all the over thinking and over and being accusatory and yelling at being mad at her husband. So I mean, yeah,
right.
I can describe it. I just can't figure out one word for it. But anyway.
So Bliss will put something in here. She said she freaked out one of her exes by watching a marathon of Snapped. LOL. Well, believe it or not, me and Steve used to watch Snap together. I mean, it wasn't one of these things where I was watching and he was sitting there cowering in the corner. We actually, because we both of us like true crime stuff, so a
Uh-huh.
lot of that true crime stuff we watched together. Um, hey, 71. Um, so
Hmm.
is there some more that you wanted to bring up about Florence Bravo, TJ?
Except the ending.
Okay, well, take it away there. We'll let you
Yeah.
spoil away there.
Well, I mean, you can see where this is going.
I think so.
She she believes that her husband has cheated on her again, and she's not going to take it anymore. And like Florence said, you have to. He doesn't deserve to live. So she has found the gun, which was Florence shows her where the gun is. It's behind a brick in the wall in the bedroom, and she takes out the gun. And the husband comes upstairs after the realtor leaves, and I'm saying realtor. So anyway, after
You can
she
say
after
any way you like.
after the house salesperson leaves, he goes upstairs and he's shocked because she has a gun, and he's
Yeah.
even more shocked because she shoots him, and he falls on the floor. And this is a violent ending. He doesn't just he doesn't just shoot him and dies. He's
Right.
falling away and bleeding, and there's blood on the floor, and she shoots him
Mm,
again. Oh, I forgot earlier on in the episode. Where the husband and wife were sort of having an argument, she sees a vision of him with blood all over his face,
yeah.
because that's a foreshadowing, because later on she shoots him in the head
Yes, she
after
does.
shooting him in the chest and in the stomach and whatever a couple of times. She finally points it to his head. Of course, the gun pulls away because this is television,
Yeah.
and he's dead. And we see after the aftermath, we see the Florence and Laurie's character Emily chatting, and they're there's no dialogue, but you see them talking, and they're just
Yeah.
basically rocking in the chairs, and they're having
Yeah.
they're two women, and they're talking, and they're having a grand old time talking about the
Killing
new
their
uh, the new dress that's coming out, and how to get out blood stains, and things like that.
How to kill your husband and get away with it. That's going to be the book
Well,
they write. Uh, but yeah, but did you think that final scene of them kind of laughing and rocking in their rocking chairs was creepy? I
yeah,
didn't. I thought it was creepy, even after everything else that had transpired in the episode.
yeah,
That just I was like, oh, it almost gave me cold chills, to see those two women, both of who had murdered their husbands essentially, or just, like TJ said, having a grand old time, not like they had a care in the world at all.
hmm I mean, that
Uh,
could be her kind of. You could also see it as her basically going back, regressing in her emotional state, and she imagined everything. And I
yeah,
mean, but at the end, we see the two of them. I mean, it could have changed. It could have gone another way, where we see the two of them, and then Florence disappears, and then Emily is still talking to her, but she's not there anymore. Kind of like it's all in her mind. This never
or
really happened.
they could have went to a scene in the mental hospital where, um, sort of like curtains,
Well,
the end
yeah,
of curtains, where you think somebody is doing, in that case, you think somebody's doing a comedy routine. It turns out they never left the nut house. They're still in the mental hospital, and there's patients sitting out in the supposed audience, and they're all slumped over in their chairs and stuff. But that could have been another way they went with it,
yeah,
that she never left the mental hospital. She was still there, and maybe there was another patient there that she thought was Florence Bravo
Yeah.
and was talking to her. And, she'd never got out of the mental hospital. Her husband had never come to get her. She never left. I mean, that's another way they could have went with it, but they chose to go
Hmm.
this route, which kind of left it a little ambiguous, I guess. You could see it from multiple ways.
Well, there was a setup earlier where he's talking about her not taking her medication, and
Yeah.
that's sort of also where things were starting to happen in the house with the Florence, kind of thing with Florence Bravo. So, I mean, that's been done. Maybe after this episode, but it has been done before with that. You stop taking your drugs, and then you start seeing things, and
Yeah.
she's like, "Oh, I don't need them. I don't need the pills anymore because I'm feeling happy." I'm like,
Right.
"Yeah, no."
There's a little
Take your pills.
There's a little bit of a scene like that in House by the Cemetery for those of you that have seen that. In that, Catriona McCall's character is very suspicious of what her husband may or may not be doing when he's outside the house. And I think she's suspicious in that movie that he's having an affair with a realtor, who's also a woman. And then her husband mentions, "Have you been taking your pills?" And she's pretty much says, "I don't like taking the pills," or "I don't like the way they make me feel," or "I don't need these pills." And he's kind of like, "Obviously you do, because you're very emotional," because she's screaming at Bob and saying that Bob brings junk in the house. But of course, that's not what we're talking about. But that reminded me of that scene where they're talking about medication.
Mm-hmm.
The moral of the story is, I guess, take your meds. If you're on meds, make sure you take them because they're for your own good.
Yeah.
Especially for mental health issues, you need to take your meds.
Yes.
Which moves us right along to another one of my favorite episodes of the Tales from the Darkside series, and it's the Giesenstacks.
Isn't that a spooky ass one?
Yeah, it is spooky. But I really, really like it. But I'm going to let TJ talk about it a little bit first.
We have another realtor in this one.
Yes.
We have two, actually. But so we have the Hummel family. We have Sam, played by we have Sam Hummel, played by Craig Wasson from Nightmare on Elm Street, Dream Warriors, and Brian De Palma's.
Yeah.
You know what? Because you've talked about that a million times. For several hours, we talked about Craig Wasson and Brian De Palma. I will say the one thing I didn't love about this was the little girl, because she annoyed the hell out of me. She was not great, I don't think. And just the way her cadence was, the way she talked, it was just like, the same way she was always playing. So her voice was always like, "Look, it's the Giesenstacks. They're doing it," especially when she's reporting some bad stuff that the Giesenstacks are doing. I'm like, with that, I don't know.
Yeah, the little girl was seemed a little off.
Yeah.
Some ways.
So anyway, so the uncle, Uncle Richard, who's a realtor, he brings over this surprise for little Audrey.
Yep.
And she takes off the blanket off of it, and it's a little dollhouse. And he's like, "I had this house that I was selling, I was showing, and I guess the family left in a hurry, and they left this dollhouse, and they kind of disappeared, and all was left is this dollhouse." And it has these four little toys in it, and the little girl starts naming the family, and it's just like them. It has a husband, a wife, a little girl, and an uncle.
Yep.
Isn't that? And the faces of the dolls are very strange. They're like
Odd.
very emotionless,
Mm-hmm.
and they seem like older timey dolls, but the faces are very like narrow. They're just creepy as hell. Like I wouldn't if I found these, I would have just like, we're gonna throw these dolls away, honey. You're playing with
Or
your
I'm
dolls.
just gonna leave this dollhouse here. I'm not, leave it for the next family that comes here to live.
So as the days go on, the little girl just keeps playing with the dollhouse, and things that she says that the dolls are doing are happening in real life to the family.
Mm-hmm.
And the husband's the one who's really noticing this. The wife sort of like playing things off where she doesn't think anything's really happening, and he's sort of maybe imagining what's going on. But worse and worse things start happening with the dolls, and it gets to the point where she's playing with the dolls at one point, and she says, "Oh, Mr. Giesenstacks, he hurt himself? Is he dead? Do we have to have a funeral?" And
Yeah.
the husband is yelling. She's like, he's in between being mad at her, but he's trying to keep it like he's trying to like not, because there's a point where he doesn't want to hurt his baby, his little girl. But there's a point earlier where he says, "Oh, the Giesenstacks were having a fight, and Mrs. Giesenstack was hit by Mr. Giesenstacks." And he's about to hit his wife because he's getting mad about the situation, and he holds himself from doing it. So when it gets to the point where the little girl's like, "Oh, Mr. Giesenstacks is dead. Has he died? Do we have to have a funeral?" He's very upset because he doesn't want to die. He's like, "No, don't ever talk about your dolls dying, and don't throw them out the window." And he's very freaked out, and and they sort of, she's like, "Don't throw my dolls away," and he's like, "F that crap."
Pretty much. And they basically want Uncle Richard to come and take the dollhouse away.
Yeah.
Is what they eventually want. Because things are getting too weird.
Yeah, and then there's the ending, which is the spoiler.
Yes.
Because it's a pretty,
I just wanted to say that again, that I really, really like this episode. It is creepy. It is unnerving. I always felt a little on edge or off kilter every time I watch it because something doesn't seem right. It almost seems like the world was turned upside down or something's very surreal from the moment that Uncle Richard brings that dollhouse. Because before that, the girl's Audrey's a little bit annoying, but they seem like a normal, pretty regular family, a mother, a father, and a little girl. And then Uncle Richard brings that damn dollhouse with the creepy ass dolls in it, and then everything just goes to hell pretty quickly. But I still like the episode, with the exception of, like TJ said, the way Audrey talks.
And she she has one credit on IMDb. So that's how.
True.
So her parents are like, "Yeah, that's it. That's enough for her.
Yeah, you're not going to be an actress." So, and I liked Craig Wasson in this. I like Craig Wasson in most things I've seen him in, but there was one point when things got a little heightened, and I was a little annoyed with him. But probably Craig Wasson was just doing what he was told as far as acting. You're going they maybe said, "Hey, you're gonna wig out at some point," and so Craig Wasson wigs out in a way only he could do it. So, but his eyes get real wide, and he's kind of on the level of Audrey, and when he's kind of getting up in her face and saying, "Don't don't ever let anything bad happen to your dolls. Don't let them die. Don't let them get sick. Uh, all of that." But he's really, really almost losing his mind, I think, at that point,
Oh yeah.
because things went from pretty normal to batshit crazy in just a few minutes as far as television time goes. And I mean, it was supposed to be in, I guess, several days actually,
Yeah.
if it was in real time. Um,
I think he did a better job than Max did in.
yeah, he did. He
Yeah,
did.
he
It
built up a
didn't
little
go.
bit better than Max.
Yeah,
Is just like
he
all of a
didn't
sudden.
go from being okay to being a dick. He was just
Yeah.
he was kind of a paranoid father, is what he turned into.
Oh,
Um,
and one of the things that really made me annoyed with the little girl. So early in the first thing the Giesenstacks do is with the Giesenstacks is she's like, "Oh, Mrs. Giesenstack got a new coat with a fur collar and bright buttons
yeah,
on it." And then the mother comes in with a new jacket with the fur collar, and they're all weighted out. And Craig is like, "Did your mother did your mother tell you about?" Because she's trying to figure out how the kid knew. Like, did your mother tell you that you were gonna get a new coat? And the kid was like, "This is what annoyed me." The kid was like, "So did your mother tell you she was gonna get a fur coat?" She's like,
yeah.
I was
That's
like, "What was that?"
but she also, when she's talking about the fur collar and the shiny buttons, and she says, "Does it have a fur collar? Does it have shiny buttons?" And she's
Yes, yeah. She doesn't have training. Oh, by the way, this is totally off topic. Florence Bravo. There's a boom shot where you can see the boom
oh,
mic
really?
shadow. Yeah, right.
I'll
It's
have to.
early on when they first get to the house and they start looking around because it's all like dark. You can see it's such a wide shot. You can see the boom just like. Anyway.
So John's here. Hey, John, because I hadn't seen John in here for a while. He says, "Hey,
Yeah.
yo, just dropping by to see say what's up. I'll have to catch up on these soon. I didn't get past season one." And John, you started out so strong. He was really excited after we did that whole first season thing. Let's see.
But yeah.
71 was talking about singing Dolls. She found it on YouTube for free. Now, Dolls, there's a movie.
Oh yeah, I like that movie.
Yeah, I do too. I should do a watch along for it sometime.
By the way, the uncle has been in a lot. He's been around for a while. The
He
one
looks
who played the
good.
uncle. He was what was it? I found that I was like, oh, he was in that. Wait a minute. Uncle Richard. He was a doctor in Alone in the Dark, the Donald Pleasance movie.
Oh, okay.
I forgot. I was like, oh, that's right. He's in that. But he was on. He did a lot of soap operas too. I remember him on soap operas. I think it was on One Life to Live.
He looks like a soap opera actor.
Well, I mean, TV. They had a small pool to go
Right.
for. This was before movie actors. Before like Jenna Ortega was doing movies and TV. This is the old days where if you did TV, you were either a TV actor or a movie actor. You couldn't be
Yeah,
famous with one and the other or the other. You had to be one or the other. So,
right.
but yeah, I remember him for that. Anyway, so the ending, they're waiting for Uncle Richard to come the next day. So they're in bed.
Yeah.
and they start hearing noises, and
It's almost like an earthquake or something.
yeah, because they wake up the next morning, and like I said, there's an earthquake. It's like there's an earthquake, and things are shaking, and it's something weird is going on. And then the next day, Uncle Richard's there, and it's just the dollhouse, and there's no sign of the family.
Mm-hmm.
Because the family's in the dollhouse. Because we first see the family and we hear noises, and then we see it's Uncle Richard in the house, and he's looking in the dollhouse, and he's realizing that the family's in there, and he's screaming, whatever the hell their names are, Audrey, Edith, Tim. He's oh no,
And he sounds like an ogre or something to
yeah,
them.
because they're in the
At the
house.
dollhouse.
They're in the dollhouse, and he's normal size, so they're
Right.
And then it's another day, and the house is totally empty except for the dollhouse. And another realtor comes in because she has a little badge on her and has her name and whatever company she works for. And she's looking at the house and smiling, and she opens it up, and there's this body. There's another doll, sort of laying there dead, I guess, and that's Uncle Richard.
Yeah.
And there's also a a smaller version of the house inside there that she takes out, and she opens it, and it's the family. And they are now the Giesenstacks.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, it's going to happen again, I guess.
the didn't you think, TJ, that, I mean, obviously Uncle Richard is upset when he discovers what happened to his family, but the look on his face, he's just like, oh, like that. It's a little over the top.
It's like he's in the theater, and he's playing to the back row, so he's got to do those more crazy expressions so they can see him back there. Yeah.
I thought that was a little odd, but
Yeah.
But yeah, another one of my favorite episodes. A couple of annoying things, including the annoying Audrey and the way she talks. But we went on about that long enough. So moving on to, I mean, some people might think Black Widows is a little bit comedic, and I guess some of the parts of it are. And the special effects are not quite up to snuff, because keep in mind, this was once again 1986. And I'll just say it's called Black Widows, and it's exactly what you think it is. And so I'm going to move it on over to TJ to talk about a little bit.
So Mildred lives with her mother. Audrey lives with her mother, Mildred, in her trailer park house. Audrey's the one that goes out to work, and mommy just stays and watches TV. And she has guests over every once in a while. Anyway, Audrey's talking about her boyfriend Robert, who they're in love with, and they want to get married. So anyway, she's got to go to work, and there's a traveling salesman at the door, and the mother's like, "Oh, honey, let him in. He's my company for today." Like, okay, so I guess she's Oh, by the way, one thing I forgot to mention, in season 3, they changed the opening title card.
Yes, they did.
Which I never liked it. I always liked the original version.
Me too.
Because it's like blood splatter letters, and in this one, it's very like the cover of a book, Tales from the Darkside. It's nice font, and it's very like drawn. And I'm like, I hated it, but it was from season 3 on. Anyway, so we have a traveling. So the traveling salesman is trying to sell her something. I don't know what the hell he's trying to sell her. And there's a little spider like on the arm of the sofa, and he wants to swat, and she's like, "We don't kill spiders in here. Spiders are good for the house." And she's like, "Would you like some tea?" And she goes over to get the tea, and the spider comes back, and he swats the spider, and she looks back at him like,
and gives him the stink eye a little bit too.
Yeah, she's very not happy that he killed the spider. So they're talking and whatever, and yeah, there's no mystery in this. She basically, we see a close up of the guy, and we see these like this spider. This, I guess, it's a spider arm. It's a weird arm that grabs him by the face.
Right.
Which, obviously it killed him because we see the next scene where the daughter is throwing something. She's throwing some coffee because the mother likes her coffee for the day, so she wants 2 pots of coffee, and the daughter's like, "Mama, come home," and it's like, you didn't even finish anything, and she's like, "Well, if it's in my thermos, it stays hot." I'm like, okay, well, I don't know how you put 2 pots of coffee in your thermos. Anyway, she empties out the grounds in the trash, and she finds the book that the guy was selling, and she's like, "Mama, you didn't buy something," and she's like, "Well, whatever." She's like, "Well, I threw coffee grounds on it. We can't return it because it's damaged now." And she's like, "Oh, well, shit happens. Sorry." And yeah, trying to think. Oh, she invites Robert over for dinner, and because the mother is like, she's vetting her daughter's beau, and
she thinks like, he's too thin.
Yes, they're both very skinny. Yeah, Audrey hasn't been able to. She eats and eats and eats, but she hasn't found something that's gonna make her gain weight. She just can't gain weight for some reason. And Robert's very skinny, also. And the mother's like, "Well, you can't marry him unless he puts on some weight because it's healthier when you're because she says earlier, like, look at me, I'm heavy. You gotta be like me, honey."
Yeah, I think she calls herself fat, doesn't she? She says,
"Yeah,
I'm fat."
you're fat and plump. I guess you can call yourself that. See, that's how it works. No one else can call you that.
She's referring to Robert as that thin man. She's like, "My daughter's not going to marry a thin man."
Yes. By the way, the mother has been around. She was around for a while. She was doing movies in the 40s.
She did look familiar.
Like she's in. She's been in. Was that an Alfred Hitchcock movie? Wait a minute. I thought that was. I gotta double check this before I. Oh no, she was in Little Women.
Okay.
She was in one of the Little Women. She was in Jane Eyre. That's what she was in. Who directed Jane Eyre? Robert Stevenson. That's who directed. Okay. Or it was Orson Welles was in that, and anyway, and she's one of those actresses that's been around for 100 years, and she ends up doing TV. So anyway, and he's like, "All right," and she's like, the mother's like, "I don't know about this guy." She's like, "I'll get fat. I'll gain weight if I when I marry her, when we get married, and I'll make you happy, and I'll make you the best son-in-law and all that." And meanwhile, we have the priest that comes over, and he's there on the wedding day, and the priest is very good at eating. He's he eats a lot. He has a couple of pieces of cake, and he's more like unfortunately he's a priest, so he can't marry the daughter, so that wasn't going to work out. So she's like, "Yeah, well, the wedding's great," but the mother's crying for some reason. She's very sad, and she's crying, and the priest is like, "Oh, it'll be fine. They're gonna have a great life and whatever." And you can hear them in there, sort of having sex, basically. but then it turns a little sounds a little bit more violent than sex.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And the priest leaves. And it's sort of quiet in the back. And the mothers see something, and we see it's Robert, and he looks like he's been sucked dry, basically.
Yeah, deflated.
He looks like one of the corpses from Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. He looks like one of those corpses.
Right.
And the body drops in front of the mother, and Audrey's sitting there with blood dripping down her mouth, and
she's still in her wedding clothes too. She's still in her,
yeah, and she says in a very calm and sedate voice, "Mama, why don't you tell me?" And that's an act break right there.
Right.
So we find out that the mother also experienced this, and when they married the father, she found out that she had this appetite for human blood. And she's like, "Mama, why don't you tell me?" And it's like, "Well, I wasn't sure if it was going to happen or not, and it ended up happening." And she's like, "Well, this is it. This is your life now." And she's like, "Do I have to be married to the person?" She's like, she says, "Mom, if I known this was going to happen, I would have married somebody I hated." And she's like, "Oh no, honey, it has to be someone you love. And then from there on, you can eat anybody you want, basically.
Strangers if you want it to be."
Yeah. And yay. And then she finds out that she's pregnant, and she's like, "I don't want my baby to have to go through the same thing I did." And she's like, "Honey, I'm sorry. She has to. It's how we are." That's basically, she's like, it's your legacy, basically, is what it is. And yeah, I mean, I guess it's not a twist per se.
No, because we're pretty much let in on it early.
Yeah. I mean, it's about 10 minutes it's like 12 minutes into like a 20-minute episode. So I mean, it's more than halfway through, and yeah. But I mean, there's a coda, there's an ending to the.
Yeah, there's kind of like a sort of like a double whammy in that the priest comes back over
to see the newborn baby.
To see
and he's a little shocked because the baby's, he's like, "That's not a pretty baby."
Yeah, he didn't want to say, "God, it's ugly,"
Yeah.
It's
but the mother says, "Well, Audrey was ugly when she was younger, but when she grew up, look at her now. She's beautiful now."
She's beautiful. So she also mentions at one point that Audrey is sort of depressed, and the priest is kind of like, "Oh well, I'll go cheer her up," and he goes in her bedroom, and it's a makeshift web. It's not like.
Well, yeah, they slowly reveal it. They slowly reveal it because she goes in, and it's the clothes are sort of hanging all over the place. So you think it might be just, they're trying to fool you to think it's just like a clothesline inside the room. But then there's the wide shot,
and then so she takes out the priest, and at that point, it becomes easier for her. That was pretty much her second kill, and it wasn't her new husband. It was just the priest that came over to visit, and so at that point, she's like telling her mother that it was easier this time and stuff. And then she's holding the baby, and you see the baby's arm come out, and it sounds like a baby, but this looks like obviously like another spider leg or arm or whatever you want.
It's a smaller version of the one earlier in the story. Yeah, it's not great. I mean, The Trouble with Mary Jane, the goat's feet look better than these arms.
Oh yeah. And the actress who played Audrey, I wanted to bring this up, is Teresa Saldana,
Yep.
Or Saldana, however you want to pronounce it,
I think it's
who
Saldana, but yeah, whatever.
Saldana, who is in a lot of different movies and stuff, but she was in one of my favorite movies that didn't have the real Beatles in it, but it was about the Beatles. I Want to Hold Your Hand. Nancy Allen was also in that. Wendy Joe Spieber or Sperber, how do you pronounce her name? She was on Bosom Buddies and was good friends with Tom Hanks, and she was
Yeah.
in some other movies that he was in.
Back to the Future.
Yep, she was in Back to the Future as well. Um,
Bachelor Party.
Bachelor Party with Tom Hanks.
Moving Violations with Bill Murray's brother. And
was that Brian Doyle Murray?
No.
Was that the other one?
No. What the hell's his name? I don't think.
I'm trying to remember his.
And Jennifer Tilly was in that also. There's sisters of famous sister and brother of famous actors in that movie. John Murray, yeah, John Murray.
John Murray, okay.
Yeah, and Jennifer Tilly. When Jennifer Tilly used to do that voice, the sexy voice that she, you know.
Teresa Saldana was also unfortunately well known for a stalker attacking her. And
he was stabbed. She survived a knife attack.
Yeah. And I don't know how. I mean, I watched the movie about that, and
yeah, she was in it too. She played herself.
Yeah,
right?
she played. Yeah. I think she plays herself in it.
Yeah.
And I was just that I had heard about that, but it was just so shocking when I watched the movie, and they were pretty much in detail about it. And I think she's such a beautiful woman. I think she's a very, very attractive woman. But yeah, that was so sad and unfortunate. I mean, I'm glad that she survived. But probably a movie that was a few steps up and worse than this one was I Cry for Help, the Tracy Thurman story. I don't know how many of you guys have seen that. It was based on a true story about Tracy Thurman, who her husband, Buck Thurman, man, that guy was crazy. But Dale Midkiff played Buck Thurman in the movie. And I have never seen Dale Midkiff play such a crazy, mean character. It was almost scary how well he played that, because usually I see Dale Midkiff and he's playing, like father characters, or maybe, love interest, where he's, not a bad guy, obviously. But in this movie, Nancy McKeon plays Tracy Thurman, and that's an absolutely terrifying movie to watch if you've never seen. I mean, I'm not saying it's not a powerful movie, but it's scary because at one point Buck stabs her and practically slits her throat and is jumping on top of her in front of her family, in front of the little boy, her and Buck's little boy. In front of the cops, and they ended up suing the cops in that town because they just basically stood there and did nothing and let Buck almost kill her. So very, very frightening movie. But we'll get back to Tales from the Darkside. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up about Black Widows, TJ?
No, I mean, besides the cheap spider effect. I mean, I like the episode. It's
right.
When I watched I would watch a few times. Like I would watch it every time it would show up.
I do enjoy it. Which brings us to an episode that I'm not real fond of, and I find it kind of boring. And TJ might disagree with me on this, but this is The Heretic, about an art collector. So I'll let TJ talk a little bit about this one first.
Yeah, I rewatched it, and I was because I was like, I didn't remember the title, and then I watched it, and I was like, okay, I remember it now, but before I was like, yeah, I don't remember anything. I didn't remember anything about the episode. Then after it was over, I was like, okay, I remember this. But so it's about this guy named Hart, and he basically gets people to he pays people to steal art work for him, and then he sells it for a ridiculous profit. So he's basically getting rich off of this, and he's very like he's in a bathrobe most of the episode because he's like one of those. He's like a Hugh Hefner type, where he's just in his big house and he's just hanging around in a bathrobe. And I guess he's Italian. I don't know. He's very he's a greaser Italian type of guy.
Exactly. He's very greasy Italian.
Yeah. So he pays this guy for this crate, and the guy's opening the crate in front of him, and it's all this like it's like a pair of women's shoes for some reason, and it's like this beggar's bowl.
Yeah.
You know, beggars use to collect money and whatever, and it's just a bunch of junk in there. And he's like, I paid like $3,000 for this, and because he's trying to sell it to make a profit. Well, and he's telling this guy, he's like, you're the peon, and maybe one day you could, I was like you once, but now I'm like rich and successful and whatever, and maybe you can be, but right now you're the one who gets stuff for me. And so he's like well, you're gonna give me the money back because there's a bunch of crap in here. So he ends up noticing that his reach is shorter than the length of the box, he notices. So he was like, oh, he finds a secret compartment, and there's this painting in there, and the guy's looking at it and is like, this is what we're talking about. This is worth something. This is something I want. And then the guy's like, well, I want more money for it now that I know there's something more in it. And he's like, no, that's not how this works.
Right.
And he basically throws the guy out. And he's like, I'm keeping this stuff. You can drop dead for all I care. But that's not the dark side. It seems that there's a strange man that appears out of nowhere with like this cloak, like a monk's robe, and he's basically telling him, you're gonna pay for stealing from people and using taking this art and that belongs to whoever it belongs to, and you're gonna be punished for it. Well, he literally becomes punished because he's taken to another dimension, I guess. I was a little confused at that part, but he's taken in front of an inquisitor who's basically going to judge him for his sins, which he has to repent for. The inquisitor is played by Robert Blossoms, who was in Durain.
Yeah, you actually have the Blu-ray too.
I do. I said the. It took me forever to find a copy that had, that they're going to put out that had the deleted footage in it.
Right.
This also has some. The commentaries are pretty good with Alan Mornsby and stuff. But
is that the Arrow release?
This
the Arrow
is
release is what I've got, I think.
This is the Kino Lorber release.
The Kino Lorber, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, for years you couldn't get that. You couldn't see those deleted scenes because they were gone basically.
Right.
And I think they're from was it from a work print or something? I don't remember. Anyway, back to the Inquisitor. He's basically has to beg for his life, and they put him on a rack until he basically submits to. And he has to be sincere. But how sincere can you be when you're being tortured into admitting that you're a scumbag? But and then he's like, okay, I'm gonna repent, and he gets back to his penthouse, or his luxury apartment, and he. Not turning over a new leaf. He's so that's sort of where it ends before we get into twist spoiler ending.
Um, yeah, honestly, I don't have a lot more to add about it.
Yeah.
TJ, I get the feeling TJ might have liked it a little more than I did. Um, but I don't know. I never have really much cared for this episode. Am I wrong, TJ, in saying that I felt like this was another one that didn't feel like a dark side episode. It felt like maybe it could be
It's
another
more
show.
Twilight Zone,
Hmm.
or this would be a night gallery episode because it has a painting in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, it's a little bit EC Comics because
Well,
somebody ends up getting their comeuppance for being such a bad person. But I don't know, even rewatching it, I still, some of these I felt a little bit differently when I rewatched them. And
yeah,
by that I mean the last time I watched them, I may have not much cared for them, but then they kind of grew on me, just like the circus episode. But this one has not grown on me. So I'm going to turn it back over to TJ to, instead of complaining about how I thought this show was boring, I'll turn it back over to TJ so he can talk about the twist for this one.
yeah. So the twist, he calls the dude back who brought him the stuff earlier, and now I can't remember what happened. I'm gonna cheat and look at the video. Let's see.
Uh-uh.
Sorry, I'm cheating.
I have to do that sometimes too.
So he buys you think he's gonna, obviously you don't think he's gonna, I'd have thought he was gonna repent, but you think he's gonna repent, but he doesn't, and he ends up trying to get rid of everything, the evidence and stuff like that, and he's gonna like hit it out of town, and he tries to burn the painting, and it isn't over for him because the Inquisitor comes out of his dimension and is like, you ain't fooling us. We knew you were. We got you. You're a lying son of a bee. And sorry, we're gonna take you back and torture the hell out of you. And he's begging again. He's like, no, please don't. Meanwhile, the guy comes back, and he notices the other dude's missing, and he sees another painting, and it's the painting of the dude being tortured again, and it ends with sort of, we see like it's a silhouette of the guy hanging there suffering for his crimes against art and and whatever. I thought the dude playing the main guy, I thought he was pretty good in it. Like I said, he gave off very Italian vibes, and of course he was in a bunch of episodes of Sopranos.
Oh, well, there you go.
He's also in a couple episodes of The Stand, the original miniseries. The Stand. Yeah. He was in the third and fourth episode of the.
I may remember him in those. Yeah.
I remember Ace High. I don't know if you remember him in that, but he was in The Doors. And yeah, he did a lot of stuff too. Like I said, he seemed very Italian, and for him to do not surprised that he did The Sopranos.
Yeah.
And the other guy, there was another guy who was the guy with the monk robe. He looks familiar. I can't really pinpoint him, but I know I've seen him a ton of times in movies and in TV and stuff. But yeah, it was an okay episode. Yeah, like you said, it's it's a comeuppance episode, very
right,
very Father's Day or something that tied you over.
Yeah,
but it's more just somebody who was a scum. He wasn't.
Yeah,
he never killed anybody. He didn't do anything like too bad. He stole and cheated people out of stuff. But yeah, whatever.
Yeah, but still not a good person, and we know in these types of stories, those people have to pay their dues, so
Well,
to
even
speak.
good people die too. They get eaten by their new wife because she can't find any meat that sticks to her bones.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
Oh man. Which brings us to that is the end of disc one,
Yeah.
or at least disc one in my set. Um, and we're on to disc two. And the first episode is A Serpent's Tooth. Now, I like this episode. Now, some people might find this one a little annoying with the overprotective mother, for one thing, who's telling her son that he doesn't need to uh, read without his glasses on, that he's going to strain his eyes. You know, all the things your mother told you when you were growing up. You
She's
know,
got great lines in this.
and she's always about chicken soup. Chicken soup will cure anything. And as
Hmm.
we see in this episode, it pretty much does.
Yeah.
Um, and the young man in the episode that plays her son who's going to college, I believe is it Brett Marks, and he was in the Bad News Bears movie.
Yeah, he was in all of them.
Okay,
At
he
least
was the guy.
the original versions.
Yes, the kid with the really curly blonde hair, and wasn't he related to the Marx brothers?
Is he? I didn't see that. I didn't know that.
I wasn't for sure, but I was thinking maybe he was, but I could be wrong on that.
I mean, he's got that curly hair. You think he's one of Lamarck's brothers? Yeah. If he's related to anybody, he's related to Harpo.
Exactly. Steve actually likes the Marx Brothers movies.
I have a whole collection of their movies. I love it. I love the movie. Yes, he's his grandfather was Gummo Marx, the Marx,
Oh,
one of the lesser Marx brothers, because they
gotcha.
had it was the main three, and then they had a couple of brothers who were sort of in and out of the movies. They were usually the better looking ones that were like the lead actor of the who was like something romantic. They would have one of the brothers who were attractive come in and play the character.
Yeah. I should ask Steve. I said, "Do you remember Gummo Marx?"
It also has the mother's played by what the hell's her name? From The Nanny, the mother from The Nanny. Renee
Oh,
Taylor. Renee Taylor from The Nanny. She plays the mother, and she's not as crazy as that character, but she's very, like you said, she's a very, she says things like, I love her line. She's like, she says to her daughter, her daughter's played by Joanne Willette, who was one of the two girls in A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 who were on the bus at the beginning.
yep.
She also was in Just the 10 of Us with Heather Langenkamp, who was also Nancy from A Nightmare on Elm Street, and Brooke Thies, who was Debbie from A Nightmare on Elm Street 4. And she's
6
done a lot
Degrees of Separation for the Nightmare on Elm Street series, I think.
Yeah, they had almost all the kids from the. If they ever make a remake, they could have the other people that they didn't bring into the.
There you go.
But anyway, so the mother says to her, because she's dressed like a punk rocker. She's very punk rock with the crazy hair and the crazy clothes and whatever. And so she goes, that jacket does not go with your underwear.
Right.
And then the son wants to be. He was originally going to be a dentist, and she wants him to be a dentist, but he wants to be a horticulturist or agriculturist or whatever.
Yeah,
and she's like, and she says, "Who wants to live in a world without good gums or good teeth?" and then her daughter leaves the house again with another crazy outfit, and she goes to her don't do anything you wouldn't want to show on network television.
Right.
And of course, chicken soup is the ultimate antidote. So anyway,
Yeah.
but anyway, let's get into the actual episode. So she's the mother who wants her kids to do what she wants, and she, like I said, she wants the daughter to stop going out with this boy all the time, and who has no prospects in his life. And she's 21, but she's like wants her to stay at home and doesn't want her to go out and have fun, and she wants her to just be at the house and do everything. And she's like, Mom, I'm 21. I'm not a baby anymore. And she's like, you're my little girl. This is how it's going to work. And
I think she wants to teach her daughter how to cook and clean and be a proper.
the daughter just wants to go and have fun. Yeah. She wants to wear too much makeup and wear too many punk clothes and whatever. She doesn't want her to go hang out with trash and suicide. She wants her to go hang out with Molly Ringwald and Judd Nelson. I don't know. Anyway. So she has a friend who's a sort of oddball older guy who's something about him, like he just seems a little off, and the daughter even mentions that there's something weird about that guy. So he gives her this magic talisman.
And I don't really know why, because we're going to talk a little bit about the power it has, but he had to know the power that it had. Why would he give this kind of flighty woman this?
He says it's a very powerful talisman, and you're the only one I would trust with it. So he thinks that she can handle it. I don't know, but he tells her it's very powerful. You got to be careful with this. Don't, he warns her, but if she went by what he said, there wouldn't be a Tales from the Darkside episode. So so he gives her this thing, and she's like, okay, fine, whatever. Because he's like, children should respect their elder, their mother, and you should honor thy parents. Very, very biblical. Yeah. So she starts saying things, just her usual mother nagging stuff, but instead of them the kids just ignoring her and going on with their lives, things start to happen. So he tells her, she tells the son that he's going to ruin his eyes, and he starts having trouble seeing. And then he's like, she's like, you'll get sick if you don't take care of yourself. And he just starts sneezing out all of a sudden. And then the daughter comes downstairs with these, high heels on, and she's like, you're going to sprain your ankles in those. And then the daughter ends up leaving the house. And she's like, oh, you hear her screaming from outside. She comes in, and she twisted her ankle, and then the son can't see. And then
and she decides to give them all chicken soup.
Well, then the little boy from across the street,
the neighbor who's a really bratty kid that's always
the neighbor comes over one time and wants to borrow salt and she's like, your mother owes me 2 dozen eggs that she never returned. I ain't giving you any salt until she gives me the eggs. And then he sort of runs off, and then he comes back later, and she's like, I'm going to tell your mother or whatever. And he sticks his tongue out at her, and she says the mother thing is like, your face is going to stick like that. And his tongue on the
he stuck his tongue like that.
So she realizes something's going on here, and she's like, I know how to fix this. Chicken soup cures everything, because the son makes the point of like, oh, all you make is chicken soup every day, and what is it, the universal cure? And she's like, it is the universal cure. So she starts feeding them. She sits everybody down. She gives them each soup, and the daughter's begrudgingly eating it, and the son can't figure out where the spoon is. And the little kid can't eat the soup because he can't close his mouth or open his mouth to put the soup.
They have to take like a dropper or something.
She takes a turkey baster and she shoves it in the side of his mouth. And then she's like, help your brother. And then the sister sticks the spoon into the soup, and the brother figures out what it is. And then they all eat the soup, and they start getting better, and the mother's like, "How's your leg, honey?" And she's like,
Right.
so she starts getting control over her kids because she has the power of the tooth. And the son becomes a dental student again, and the daughter's dressing down, and she's like, I want to go out and be with my boyfriend, and I don't want to be here cooking. I'm sweating. I don't want to be here cooking food. And she invites the boyfriend over, and the boyfriend is Junior from Friday the 13th Part 5.
Yes.
Remember Junior gets his head cut off from yeah, Ron Sloan plays
Ron Sloan
plays Barry in this. But yeah.
And what happens to Barry, TJ?
Yeah, here we go. So we get to a crescendo with her powers, I guess, where they're having a nice time. You know, Barry's eating some cake, and he's talking about, yeah, I'm blah blah. I love your daughter. And it's another one of those, trying to convince the mother that he's the right guy for the daughter and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he asks for another piece of cake, and she goes, "Oh, you keep eating like this, you're gonna turn into a slice of date nut bread." And what happens? He turns into a slice of date nut bread, and the daughter's like, "Mom, look what you did! Oh my God! Honey, don't worry." Blah blah blah. And then the little boy comes to the door because he's been doing errands for her and becoming her. She basically makes servants out of the kids. So he comes to the door and he's like, "I had to go across the town to get your bread. I'm late for dinner. My mother's gonna kill me. She's gonna yell at me." And she turns and says, he's having a conniption over it, and the kid starts having a fit. So he starts, shaking, and he falls to the ground, thud, and you see he's in the hallway, and you see just his feet shaking, and she's like, "I don't know what to, God." She's freaking out, and they call the guy who gave her the tooth, and she's like, "Can we do?" She's crying, and she's like, "Can we do something to fix this?" And he's like, "I can't do anything. You can't change it." And now you've all learned a valuable lesson by this. Don't abuse the power and pay attention to your mother, and nothing like this will happen. And then it's like the next day or whatever, and we don't know what happened to the kid. The kid's unconscious, and is he dead? I don't know. And the daughter
just shove him in a closet somewhere.
Yeah, and then the daughter puts the piece of bread in the date nut bread in the
Tupperware
and says, "Bye, Barry," and puts him in the refrigerator. And that's the end of him, I guess.
I guess.
And then the next day, the daughter's back to being, dressing up in the wild makeup and the wild clothes, and then because the mother had put the tooth away, she's like, "I promise never to use this again." And they're like, "Well, give it back to the guy." And she's like, "No, he gave it to me as a gift. I'm not going to return it, but I promise I won't use it." Well, the next day, when everything's sort of going back to the way it was, she grabs a tooth. And then the daughter comes out and says, "Aha!
Caught you.
You couldn't help using that. You want the power. You just can't stop using that." And then the daughter says, "Well, you want to kill me because you don't like my hair?" And she's like, "I love you." But then the rest of this is a spoiler, so I won't finish what she says. But anyway, up until this point.
I do want to bring up what Wes brought up. He said, "It's been a while since I've seen many of these old episodes, but I felt the third and fourth seasons were all fairly bad. There may have been a good one every now and then, but the series was dropping fast." And sadly, I'd have to agree with Wes on that because like I kind of said at the beginning of this stream, the good ones were getting fewer and far between as the series reached its inevitable end. It's almost like they put almost all of their best episodes in the first season, so that as it went on, they kind of ran out of good episodes.
Yeah.
And Wes also says we talk about that episode with Ron the last time we had him on. So bad. But I did, even though this is not a really great episode by any stretch of the imagination, I still kind of enjoyed it. It does have its really over the top moments. For instance, the daughter putting Barry, who's become a slice of bread, into the Tupperware container
Date
and
nut
stuff.
bread.
Yes, date nut bread to be exact. Um, and just the whole thing about your mother always told you your face is going to freeze like that.
Yeah.
When you would you know be sulking or something like that, they'd be like, if you keep looking like that, your face is going to freeze like that, or it's going to get stuck like that. I, Steve's mom tells him that nowadays. If Steve makes some kind of weird face or funny face, and I get a picture of him and we put it on Facebook, and it's like, ha ha,
Yeah.
everybody laugh at Steve making this funny face, but his mom doesn't laugh at it. She says, Steven, if you don't stop doing that, your face is going to freeze that way or get stuck that way. So his mom is really old school like that. And my mom used to tell me and my brother stuff like that as well, and even dad would say it. So it's not just your moms that say that. Sometimes your dads can say that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but yeah, it's a little bit over the top, but I still enjoy it. And yeah, it's a bad episode. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie.
I mean, yeah.
You know, but I like
It's
it.
a ridiculous premise. It's if they did more horror version of it, I think it would be better. But Renee Taylor's great in it. I mean, I think she's really funny, and she plays the mother. I mean, she's had a career of playing that kind of character, but I mean, she did it really well, I thought. And the kids, they were fine. They didn't have much to do as far as like character development. Like I said, I think it was funny stuff. There's the part where the kids are like, we're afraid of mom, and the son is like, she told the aunt that she drinks all that soda, she's gonna blow up like a balloon, and then she says, now she's floating somewhere over New Jersey. So I mean,
yeah. So I'm going to turn it back over to TJ for the twist ending to this before we go on to the next episode.
So the daughter's yelling, and she's like, "Mom, you want to kill me? You want to kill me because you don't like my hair?" She goes, "I love you. She's like, if a mother loved a daughter any more than you, may I turn into a pillar of salt." And then there's a big flash of light, and then it cuts to another day, and the daughter's still dressed up, but she's a little toned down, and she's like watering the plants, and she's like, "I'm going out. I'll be back soon, Mom." And then the kid's like, "I'm going to dental class or whatever." So, and they go to kiss her goodbye, and she's this pillar of salt, like on the couch with the necklace sort of sticking out. And
kind of reminds me of how the guy on Halloween 3, whenever he, like, right before he kind of fades away, when stuff goes crazy near the end, and it looks like his face is like stone, and then he just kind of vaporizes. That's what it sort of reminds me of.
Well, have you ever seen that comedy with Dudley Moore, where it's like biblical times, and he's like, he's Moses's like stepbrother. Oh, no, he's Moses's brother-in-law, and
I don't think I've seen that one.
It's like biblical times, but like with a comedy version. And so they're like, him and his wife are at Sodom and Gomorrah, and they're partying, having fun. And Lorraine Newman plays his girlfriend. And the thing in the biblical story, the Lot's wife turns around to the city, and she turns into a pillar of salt.
Ah,
So,
okay.
so in that movie, it's like a crappy looking mannequin of Lorraine Newman, and it's just hilarious. And it's like he sort of has her in the corner as a statue because she's now this pillar of salt. So it kind of reminded me of that.
Oh my.
And she's like, they kiss her goodbye, and you hear her voice, and she's like, "Oh well, it was worth it because they're great kids now." So I mean,
Yeah, they're such obedient children now.
yeah. Oh, there's another brief scene where she's showing her powers, and the daughter's like, I've been cutting vegetables and I'm sweating, and she's like,
Yeah.
good girls glow, and then she starts glowing really bright, and she's like, Mom, knock it off, and she goes, okay, girls don't glow, and she stopped glowing,
Right.
which is kind of weird. She could stop that, but later on she can't
But
fix
yeah,
the
she
other.
can't.
Yeah, so but
Yeah,
it's a comedy, so it's not supposed to be literally,
right.
pay attention to things. So I mean, but anyway,
Exactly.
yeah. So that episode.
That was Serpent's Tooth, which brings us to Baker's Dozen, which I quite like this
I
episode.
like this one too. Yeah,
This one's quite a bit more creepy, I think.
it is.
Uh,
Yes,
got to do with voodoo and a woman that's like, I guess, a voodoo queen, but she also runs a bakery
yes.
as well. So I have got to run to the restroom, but I'm going to let TJ go ahead and get started talking about it, and I will be right back.
So Baker's Dozen, directed by John Harrison from Creepshow fame, who decided, hey, music sucks. I'm going to direct stuff. So it's about this. I don't remember how it begins. Wait a minute. It's funny. The broadcast order and the DVD order are kind of different, so it's a little off of where it is, because this is the 14th episode of the season, but it's like the 9th episode of the of season 3, which is weird. So this bakery, and there's owned by Ruby Cousins, who's the baker, and Aloysius Cousins, who is sort of he's the custodian. He cleans up after everything. He's make sure everything's neat, and he's sort of the Ruby's like gopher, like, yeah, go do this, go do that for me, and sort of like, I'm sure he doesn't get. I'm sure he gets paid less than minimum wage for his services. So this guy comes in who wants to strike a deal with Ruby. He found out her cookies have special abilities where they basically can make things happen. She makes a comment about she eats a certain cookie that's like a happiness cookie, which I don't know if it has marijuana in it or not, but she's like, oh, these are all I eat, because she's always laughing. She's very maniacal. There's a lot of scene chewing in this. Ruby is played by Maybelle King, who I don't know if anybody knows who she was. She was in The Wiz. She played the Wicked Witch in The Wiz, the musical Broadway version, as well as the movie that not everybody likes. And Aloysius is played by Vernon Washington, who was also in Friday the 13th Part 5. Was he played George, I think? Was that his name? Yeah, he played George, who was like, I guess, the cook or the caretaker or whatever he was in that. So there's they picked a couple episodes where they got some Friday the 13th people. I guess they were kicking around town, and they're like, could you be in this episode? So yeah, Henry Hogan wants to. No, he's no relation to Hulk Hogan. He was the buddy in Knight Rider, the original Knight Rider series. He was the David Hasselhoff's buddy throughout the series. Anyway, he wants to make a deal with her because he wants to become rich and famous, and he knows if he gets her cookies, he can do that. So Aloysius secretly gives him some cookies because he doesn't want to have to go through her. He just wants to make this money on his own. So he goes out and tries to make a success of himself. We see this through a montage of television clips and like newspapers, and we see his rise, and then he has a fall where he's poor and he has no money, and meanwhile he has his wife who thinks he's out cheating, where he's just trying to go out and make money, but she still thinks he's cheating on her, which that can't lead to this season. There's a lot of cheating in this season. It's actually not 100% proven that he's cheating. She just thinks he's cheating. But anyway, I digress from that. He goes back to Ruby and he's like, I want to buy some more of your cookies. And she's like, you know why you had such a downfall in your career? Because I was doing it. I have control over you, whether you like it or not. She actually has some control of Aloysius earlier on in the story, because we find out that he's also her father, who left her and her mother to fend for themselves without money and without food and without, a roof over their head. And she basically made him her servant, basically, is because to punish him for what he did. But she also has her voodoo. At one point, she turns him into a rat to punish him for giving those cookies over to Henry there. And so Henry comes back and says, I want more cookies from you because I want to be a success. And she gives him one last cookie. And oh, look, Dana's back.
Yep, I'm back.
And she basically gives him the cookie and says, here, take this. And he takes it back to she kisses it, and he later brings it back, and the nagging wife's like, you're out cheating again with your secretary. I know you've been doing it. And she's all like, earlier on she didn't look great, but by this point she's like disheveled and her hair looks crappy and her makeup's running, and she's just like, you're cheating on me. And she's like, she's another person who's she does a pretty okay job chewing up the scenery. There's a lot of chewing up the scenery. Aloysius chews up the scenery. Henry chews up the scenery. Everybody, there's a lot of scenery chewing. I mean, so you can look at this. It's a dark episode, but it's also there's a level of levity to it.
Speaking of Friday the 13th Part 5, isn't the Aloysius?
Yeah, I mentioned that.
Okay, so
he plays George.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So we got 2 episodes right in a row that had alumni of Friday the 13th Part 5 in it.
I was saying they must have been hanging around some set, and they're like, "Hey, we want you to. Could you be in Tales from the Darkside after you're done making this movie?"
Exactly.
So he brings the cookie back home, and he's like, "I'm not having an affair. I'm fed up with you. I'm gonna go take a shower. You gotta stop being, crazy and accusing me of stuff that's not true. Because there's really no proof that he had an affair with anybody. Because there's not really a scene with him and anybody else besides him and Ruby.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes up to take a shower, and the wife opens up the package, and she's like, she sees the cookie and she sees the lipstick, and she's like, that's not my shade. I knew he was having an affair. And then she grabs the cookie and starts crumbling it, and you hear him screaming upstairs, and you see in the shower blood. You don't see him, but you see his legs, and you see just blood like pooling up and chunks of blood like all over the place. So it's kind of a gruesome. You don't see it, but it's pretty gruesome looking. And we go back to the bakery, and she punishes Aloysius again. And the second time, she turns him into a rat.
Yeah.
And then he sort of disappears, and she does some more scene chewing, and she's like, you rat, and you're gonna suffer, and I'm gonna make myself successful, and I don't need anybody, and blah blah blah. And then that leads up to the final twist to the episode.
The final twist, yeah.
But I mean, you weren't here for my rambling, but you can.
Oh, that's okay. I think I got, and it wasn't rambling, by the way, TJ. You do a very good job of explaining these episodes, which is why I let you go first. That way, my stuff that's actually rambling, at least I get to enjoy you before it gets to me carrying on. So, um, I like this episode. I agree with TJ that it is a little bit more gruesome. This is kind of maybe on the level of the circus episode if you want to compare it to another episode in this series. Um, I would say that I like the voodoo element. I like the fact that a lot of the darkness stems from these damn cookies that this woman bakes.
Mm.
Um, and this one too, I think, has a very EC Comics type of feel to it.
Yeah.
Because, I'm going to let TJ get to that final twist, but we actually have a couple of twists in this one that are, in my opinion, EC Comics related. People that are not very nice people do pretty much get their comeuppance. Um, but I was looking at John's comment here. He says, it feels like these episodes were clear as a kid, but could have been seeing them in SD on a tube TV versus a 4K TV now in SD. Yeah, I think that's a lot of it. I mean, a lot of us have big screen, 4K TVs or other high definition TVs.
Yeah.
That's not what these episodes were meant to be seen on. When these episodes first came out, people did have tube TVs. They didn't have these 4K or in some cases 8K if people can afford these 8K TVs. Um, Steve says we don't ever need a 8K TV, but he said that about 4K TVs. But then once I bought a 4K TV and got a 4K player so we could, watch the 4K movies, he kind of changed his tune. So give him a few years. I don't know. He may change his mind. But anyway, I think that's exactly what John says. That's exactly true. And I meant to talk about the circus episode looking particularly bad when I rewatched it this time. Did you feel that way, TJ, that it looked a little worse than some of these other episodes?
Well, it's a very dark episode too, so I mean, it's hard to. Also, it was filmed, transferred to videotape. You got a downgrade right there, and then it was transferred to whatever other format to get. I mean, they directly took probably those video masters. They probably didn't get video masters. They might even got like a second generation of those because it just doesn't look. Yeah, I remember them being a lot clearer on TV when I was a kid than
a lot of stuff.
Looking at the DVDs, but like they can't like we've said a bunch of times, they have to go back to the original film elements and do everything from scratch, and it's just it's not going to happen.
A lot of
you can't. They do upgrade DVDs and upskill. I don't know why they can't. Maybe they just didn't want to even try.
Maybe they just didn't want to spend out the money on it. It's Tales from the Darkside. We're not going to do that.
I mean, I hate these flip things. I hate these.
Yeah, I mean, I probably paid way too much money because I got these when they originally came out, the original releases of these, and I probably should have waited. And, even though TJ says he hates the way that case is, a couple of my cases are like shattered, like on the corner. So even they're not, really good.
I mean, there's no off gassing.
No, there's not. John, you say I watched Tour of the Corn 2 on DVD recently. Oh, the quality is so bad. Yeah.
Why?
I almost forgot. Hilarious movie though. Yeah, it pretty much is though. Wes says Steve will be home soon, boss, and I bet he'll be mad. No, actually, he'll be tired. He's been coming home at about 11:30 or between 11:30 and midnight all this week, and he looks like a freaking zombie when he comes in here. Looks like he could star in if George Romero was still living and was making another Dead movie. He literally looks like he could be in that. He just looks like he's on complete autopilot. And then he doesn't say much, and he goes and brushes his teeth and gets in
Dental
his
hygiene is very important.
yes, it
Always
is.
brush your teeth
As we discovered
twice
from
a day.
So I don't
Right.
think he'll be awake enough to be mad. Wes also says 8K is only useful if you have a gigantic display. Otherwise, your eyes aren't capable of telling the difference, especially if they're scanning these old movies. And you're right, Wes. I have heard that. Wes says we talked to Felsher about that. There may be something happening with a few episodes. Ooh, interesting.
Oh, really? Okay.
Wes says it does involve them re-editing the film
Yeah.
footage since the masters are on video. Um, which I'm going to turn it back over to TJ real
We got to
quick.
finish this episode.
Yeah, so we can talk about these last two episodes we're going to talk about tonight.
So the end of Baker's Dozen. The Aloysius had. It's called Baker's Dozen. There were 13 in a Baker's Dozen. Aloysius kept one of the cookies that he gave the dude. So the last cookie wasn't the last cookie. That was the 12th cookie. He has the 13th cookie. And Ruby realizes this, and she starts screaming in pain and grabbing her head and falling to the ground because in the back of the bakery, he is eating her cookie and eating at the head. And she's dying because he's eating her. And that's the second twist. It could have just ended with the dude.
Yeah.
With Hogan getting killed. That could have been just an ending right there. But nope, we're going to kill everybody in this.
Yeah.
Of course, now Aloysius is going to be a rat for the rest of his life. But whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what it kind of seemed like it was going to be, because if he kills the voodoo woman, then, I would assume he's going to stay a rat.
Oh, and the wife will probably be convicted of the guy's murder because she can't get out of having a dead body in her shower.
Right. So, moving on to the next to last episode we're going to cover tonight, Deliver from Goodness, which has, is her name Kwani Lee? Is that how you pronounce it, TJ?
I pronounced it earlier, and I'm gonna guess it sounds Hawaiian.
Mm-hmm.
Keulani, that's what I would think it was.
Okay.
Keulani Lee.
She was in some other things, but most notably to me, being the Stephen King fan that I am, she plays the mother and the wife in it on Cujo.
Cujo, yep.
Mm-hmm.
She's in The Fan. Have you ever seen The Fan?
Yeah, it's been a little bit, but yeah, I've seen that.
And she was in The World According to Garp. I forgot she was in that. She was one of the hospital. She was a doctor in there somewhere. I forget.
And there was another. The Golden Years. Anybody remember the Golden Years?
I remember that it was a show
that was based on not necessarily maybe a story that Stephen King wrote, but I think it was kind of like a screenplay type of thing that he wrote. But not only was she in that, but Ed Lauder was in it as well, and they were both on Cujo together. So I thought that was interesting.
Ah. It also has Mary Louise Wilson from Pet Cemetery. She played
Yes.
the what's her face's mother. Ellie's the granddaughter. The hell's her name? Rachel. She played Rachel. She played Rachel's mother in that, and she was in Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. And that show from the 70s, One Day at a Time, the original series.
Oh wow,
She was in it with Valerie Bertinelli. She was in that too. Yeah, this is an interesting one. I don't know how I feel about this one.
It's
cute, but it's like
it's cute, but it's a little goofy. It's a little goofy too.
Like I love it's set in the South, and it's about a woman who's religious, but she's not religious.
She's not a Bible thumper.
Yeah, she says at one point, I believe in, like, she believes in God, but she doesn't believe in God controlling everything she does, basically, kind of is what she says. I'm paraphrasing badly, but that's basically what she says. Deliver us from goodness. Oh, my goodness.
But you know what's funny in this episode is because she tries to be a little bad. She tries to commit all these sins, and no matter how bad she is, like trying to seduce a priest at one point and stuff like that, the glow around her and stuff does not go away. In fact, it gets worse. And it doesn't matter what she does to try to darken it, it just doesn't happen. But I'll turn it back over to TJ. I didn't mean to interrupt him.
So she, so her husband, excuse me. Oh, by the way, this is also another one directed by Warner Shook.
Yes.
So Valeria is the wife of Julian, who is running for public office. Is he running for mayor? I don't know what he's running for. And they have their little kind of nerdy daughter, played by Jane Addams, who, what the hell is she in? That I was like, oh, that's right. She's in that. She's the hell is she in? Well, she played she was in the new Twin Peaks. She played Constance. I don't know if anybody watched the new Twin Peaks. Okay. But she was in the I hate to bring this up because the movie wasn't great, but she was in the Poltergeist remake. She was sort of the Dr. Lesh character. The only thing I can say, if you're going to compare it to the original movie, she's sort of she's the ex-wife of the main dude who's anyway. But and she was in the Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. But anyway, she did a lot of stuff. But anyway, she plays sort of the nerdy daughter, Charlotte, who Charlotte wants to be on the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, but when she gets a figure good enough for television, I'm going to just do this in a Southern accent because it's a Southern, everybody's Southern in this. And, you know, Julian wants to be mayor or whatever he wants to be. And what the hell? He's played by, he's another soap opera dude who did a lot of TV and crap. He's in House 4.
Oh, okay.
And he's in Mannequin. Have you ever seen Mannequin with Andrew McCarthy?
Yes, I like that movie. Some people probably think it's goofy, but
he plays like the guy who's sort of like the head of the department store and that. Yeah, these are all comedic-ish type people. Anyway, and so they're having dinner with this who is the guy? What is it? What is he? He's the local guy that you go to if you want to be successful, you want to become in the public office. I guess he's a money guy. He's probably the one who's going to back him. And if he backs you, yeah. So he's a hypochondriac, like everything. He's like, do you have cats? Do you have cats here? Because I'm allergic to cats. And then like they serve him some dinner. Oh, I'm allergic to that. I can't eat that. And I was like, oh. He's allergic to everything. And then yeah, the wife all of a sudden, she's a very good, she makes the dinner, and she's supporting her husband, and she's supporting her daughter, and she starts glowing at the table, and the guy's like, I can't be here with a glowing woman. I'm out of here. He hightails it out of the. I don't know. Meanwhile, the daughter's trying to be she's trying to show her baton skills. Yeah. She's just flipping shit around, and anyway, she starts glowing, and they're like, "What's going on? Why are you glowing like that?"
Yeah.
And it's the next day, and that's another thing. He's like, "Oh, I'm allergic to this. I'm allergic to this," and she's like, What would you like? A bucket of chicken? And a bucket of KFC chicken falls out of the sky and just lands on the table, and he's just all freaked out. And the mother starts glowing, and they're like, "Mama, why are you glowing?" And she's like, "I don't rightfully know why I'm." She's just very confused and why she's.
Yeah, TJ's right. This is very Southern.
And she has a very, she has one of those mothers who's very nagging, and she's talking over the phone, and she's like giving her all her ailment. I'm sure she's like, "Well, I had the vapors, and I was tired." I'm sure she was. "I have ailments, honey, and you have to help me out here." She's very Southern. She's one of those Southern, women who wants to take care of everybody. She wants to. She's very. If you ever watched the Carol Burnett show, she's like Eunice, who's like, she's very put upon, but she's nicer than Eunice. She's not. Eunice hates everybody, but anyway.
Yeah, Eunice was always pretty bitchy. That character was.
So anyway, it's another day, and her daughter's putting on this makeup. She wants to impress the boys at school, and she's like, "What are you trying to be, Cleopatra?" And then all of a sudden, the daughter has a Cleopatra dress, and then the daughter just starts freaking out. "Mama, what are you doing?"
She's mortified.
It's funny because she's in her little Chuck Taylor sneakers, but she's dressed with the wig on and the Nefertiti dress and whatever. And she's like, she's crying. She's like, "Mama, what am I can't go out like this." She's great.
It's sort of like the Serpent's Tooth episode, only not quite as dark as that one.
So then she's like, "What do I do?" She goes to the priest, but did she go to her priest? She goes to a more secular type priest who's more into Jesus and the apostles, and I guess I'm not sure what they are. Did she even say?
I can't really recall.
Because he's like, "Why did you come to me when we're not of the exact same faith?" Yeah.
But was that at the point where she was trying to be really bad and she was trying to figure out?
No, that doesn't happen yet. That's we're not up to that part. Because he's like, he's like trying to help her, and she's like, "You're my only help. I don't know what I can do if you don't help me." And he sees her glow and everything, and then wait a minute. He helps her basically decide that if I start doing bad things, I'll stop being he basically says, "You're a saint." He sees her glowing, and he's like, "You're a saint. That's why all these things are happening, because you're a saint." And she's like, "I just want to be a housewife and take care of my daughter and support my husband. I don't want to just I don't want to be a saint and help cure people and whatnot." So she decides, "I'm going to go against everything that all the 10." She basically goes against the 10 Commandments. So she starts praying the Buddha, and her daughter's like, "I pray to Bruce Springsteen, so why don't you do it too? I think it might help you." And she's like, "All right." And there's a point where the dad comes and she's like, you're praying to Buddha and Bruce Springsteen, and she starts cursing.
Yeah.
I forget what she says. She says like "damn it" or something like that, and the whole family's like, "Mama, you didn't say that word."
Keep in mind, guys, this is television, so she couldn't swear really bad. So.
Well, this is when you couldn't say JC, and you couldn't say God-related stuff, so she had to like say things that were close to it. So then she's got like the Hindu with all the arms, the Hindu god. So she's voted. She's basically praying to everybody, and she's doing all the everything. She's lying. Well, thou shalt not lie, isn't? But anyway, she's doing all the commandments, and there's a point where she's got a checklist, and she's checking everything off that she does bad. She's dressing, like
doesn't she kill a fly or something when it gets to?
She kills a bunch of like roaches.
Roaches. Okay.
They have like a thing of roaches, and she's sticking pins in them to a board. So she's like killing roaches because she's thou shalt not kill. And then they come to thou shalt not adultery. They shall not commit adultery. And she's like, her and her husband are there, and she's like, don't say we had to do them in order, honey. So,
you're right.
So they're saving that till last.
Right.
So they finally come to like the adultery, and she's like, I don't know. She goes to the priest, and she's dressed like a hussy, and she's coming on to the priest, and she's like, and he's like, for a second, he's like, maybe. He's like, no, I can't do it.
Yeah, he thinks about it for like half a second.
Yeah, but she's like, it's still not working, and she's still glowing, and so she goes to the neighbor Ruby, and Ruby's like got stretch pants on, and she got a low-cut dress, and she's got garter jewelry and rings and makeup done, and she's got a turban on her head. She's very old. She's very like Golden Girls, Blanche. Trying to be Blanche sexy, like. And she's like, she's trying to teach her how to be bad, and she's like, well, what are you doing? Well, she's like, I did all this, and I'm doing this for my daughter and my husband, and she's like, that's your problem, honey. You're doing it for other people, and that's not easy. That's good. That's why it's not. You're not becoming you're still a saint, because you're doing saintly things. So you have to start doing things. She's like, the worst sin, it's not killing somebody, because she's like, should I kill somebody? It's like, that's not the worst sin, honey. It's pride. Mm-hmm. So she starts going, okay, I'll use pride to. If we also just go through this episode, forget about spoiling this episode, because it leads
there
into the spoiler.
you go.
Yeah. So she's like, I'm gonna be proud. So she's dressed with a fake halo, and she's wearing a long, like, angel robe, and she's at the top, and Ruby's making signs for her, and she's like, come pay to see the saint. And she's saying how I'm the greatest thing in the world, and everybody loves me, and everybody wants to meet me and be me, and will worship at my feet, and they'll pay me to bless them, and I have to. And she's actually getting into it. She's like, I can save the world, and she finally loses her sainthood because she's too proud, and Jesus, or the God or whatever, takes away her power, basically. Mm-hmm. And she realizes that she's happier being the mother, but that's not the end of it. Suddenly, and she thanks Ruby, and she's like, Ruby, thank you. Without you, this wouldn't have happened. And she's like, of course it is. I'm like, she's like, you're welcome, and I'm glad I could help. And then she starts glowing, and she's like, well, I guess I'm a Satan now.
So yeah, this one's a little this one's a little goofy and
Yeah,
a
it's out
little
there.
overblown and all that stuff, but I don't hate it. It's not my all-time favorite episode, but I can watch it and get some enjoyment out of it. I don't find it boring. Um, but this is another one that almost doesn't feel like a Tales from the Darkside episode, and that's not necessarily because it's so comedic, but
Yeah.
it just seems almost, you know what it seems like to me? It seems like one of those 70s sitcoms, late 70s, early 80s sitcoms that were on. That's what it feels like with a little bit of a supernatural element to it as well.
Hmm.
Uh, so it just doesn't, again, it doesn't feel like a Tales from the Dark Side
Well,
episode.
the woman who one of the writers wrote a lot of the ones that are like sort of like this. She wrote The False Prophet.
Mm,
Um, though she wrote Grandma's Last Wish, which was a really good one, and
right. Yes, it was.
um, then again, she wrote Comet Watch. She wrote The Bitterest Pill. I mean, she did. So she did, but she did. I Help Saying Goodbye. So I mean, she can do. But I
She can
guess
do it darker.
yeah, I guess they just wanted to just change it up, and they figured the third season they could do whatever they wanted, and
Right. It's like,
yeah,
well,
I don't know.
no, we'll just throw a bunch of these in there.
And
um,
I think Ruby was a hooker because at the end she's glowing and she's like, my customers are not gonna like this.
yeah.
So
Oh man. So that brings us to the final episode we're going to talk about tonight. And this is one of my all-time favorites. And it's also one that I always watch around Christmas time because it
why?
takes place on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
And it's Seasons of Belief. And this one actually came out when it was originally released, was just after Christmas in 1986. It came out on the 29th of December.
Hmm.
Just, I guess, just before New Year's Eve and New Year's. So I'll let TJ give a little intro to this episode.
Yeah, I think because it's a horror story about not Christmas. It's about Christmas, but it's not about Santa. So I think
Mm,
they probably didn't want to have it on the same time as the religious Christmas stuff and the
yeah,
more
or
kid friendly stuff because this is not
yeah,
a there's kids in this, but
and do you know that one of the kids, the brother in this, is the brother to the twins that played Ellie in Pet Cemetery?
really.
Hmm.
Huh.
It's their brother, and actually, they considered him. I don't know how it would have worked because he was probably still quite young at that age, but they considered using him to play Zelda in Pet Cemetery.
Huh, that would have been interesting.
Yeah, it would have been interesting. I just don't know how they would have made it work. I think they went with the right choice though, because the Zelda scenes creep me out, and they creep a
Hmm.
lot of people out when they watch them. But I'll put it back over to TJ.
So these are terrible parents, but
And what in the world? I mean, isn't the husband way too old for the wife? I mean, in my opinion.
that's
So,
how it was back then.
was it that way
Well,
in 1986?
yeah, back way back. How old was Elvis and how old was Lisa Marie Presley?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
How old was what's his
Patrick
face?
Swayze
Jerry
was,
Lee Lewis and his wife. I mean,
yeah.
and that was very extreme, but I
She
mean,
was, yeah, I think she was 13 when.
yeah. Anyway, let's
Uh,
not talk about statutory situations.
Patrick
Let's see.
Swayze was a lot older than the woman that became his wife too.
How old was this woman? Now I'm going to find out how old is. Margaret Clink. What a great name.
That's a fun name.
She was born in 53, and it has E.G. Marshall plays the dad. E.G.
Yes.
Marshall from They're Creeping Up on You from Creepshow and 12 Angry Men and
Yes.
National Lampoon's Vacation, Superman series. He played the president in Superman 2. 53, and he was born in 1914.
Yeah. I just thought that was always a little bit of a stretch.
Maybe we're not supposed to look up how old they are.
Yeah, probably.
Well, then again, Mrs. Kittner from Jaws was only in her mid-40s, and she looked like she was 70. So, I mean, somebody had put something on Facebook about how old she looked, and I wrote her real age, and I got like 50 responses of people shocked at how old she really was compared to how she looked in the movie. And I was like, she was actually about the right age probably, but she did not look like she had.
I just remember her saying in Jaws, "Alex Kittner, you're beginning to prune," when he's wanting to get back in the water.
She had some hard left behind her before that. I forgot that she was in Jaws: The Revenge. She's actually brought her back for that. I forgot as the same character.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, E.G. and Mom decide to tell the kids the story about the Grither, which is a creature that is, I guess it's sort of like the Krampus, I guess.
Kinda, yeah.
But I don't think it delivers any presents. It's just kind of
just an evil character.
Just an evil some the bitch.
It's almost like an evil, like a really evil version of the Grinch.
Yes. And they describe it like this scraggly with like long arms and also the daughter is played by Jenna Van Oy from Blossom. If you ever remember Blossom,
yes.
She played Blossom's friend Six, and she was in what was that show? She was in the show The Parkers, which was a spinoff of Moesha. Like, any horror fans watch Moesha, I'd be shocked.
I don't remember The Parkers. I didn't watch Moesha, but I remember that show.
The Parkers was a spinoff with what's her face from Precious, Monique.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Anyway, so they're basically telling the story about the Grither, and they're scaring the crap out of the children. And I mean, and the kids are like looking up and like, and they're asking questions, and then like, it's also getting late. I'm like, why aren't these kids in bed? Stop telling your kids this horror story.
Yeah.
Put your kids to bed.
What are these that would tell their kids this kind of story?
I mean, I'm getting away from the episode. I mean, I'm not going to verbatim give you the story of what the parents were telling the kids, but it also has their uncle visits. Who he's sort of the lighter character.
Yeah.
Also, they decide during the middle of the movie to sing a song about the Grither, because we need a song, a Grither carol, because you know. So the father, the mother starts playing on the piano, and then he starts telling the horrible tale of the Grither, and these kids are backing away in fear of the parents. Like they keep backing away further and further.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, they're gonna back into the fire, and they got these looks on their faces, just like, what the hell?
It's like you're gonna traumatize these kids for life here.
And they're scaring the hell out of the kids, and and then the kids are just waiting now for something to happen. They're kind of bored. They're like talking back to the parents, like, what do we do? When are we gonna, what's going on? I mean, they're just bored out of their minds. Well, anyway, they hear a commotion at the front door. Somebody's trying to get in, and they're a little scared, the little kids, and The door is being fussed with, and they're running and hiding, and then the door bursts open, and this tall figure with fur and a big hat and long fur or whatever, and he starts shaking, and
he's
the
singing
snow is flying everywhere.
He's singing the Grither Christmas Carol.
Yeah, and it's their uncle. He's just surprising them to say hi or whatever, and I mean, it's just about scaring the kids, and it's a creepy story. I mean, I'm laughing because it's just ridiculous that you would do this to your poor kids.
Yeah.
And especially 80-year-old dad and 20-year-old mom. You think he would try to calm down and get his blood pressure up, because he doesn't, he should be relaxing there and taking his blood medication and whatever. So yeah, I mean, and then it leads up to the twist is basically, I mean, what's your opinion on the episode up until this point?
I mean, other than
if you want to be more specific about what happened,
other than the things that TJ brought up that are a little odd and kind of mean spirited on the parts of the parents. My parents would have never scared me to death on Christmas Eve. I mean, that's one thing they would have never done. I don't think most parents would do anything like that. So that was a little odd, but the story itself and the story within the story about the Grither, I think that's interesting. And like I said, I like the Christmas aspect of it because it gives me another kind of horror related thing to watch around Christmas time, which I do most every year. So I'm going to turn it back over to TJ so he can give you this little twist in there.
So once the uncle comes in and things kind of calm down, there's a crazy wind that's hitting the side of the house, and the doors, they can't. They're trying to shut the doors, and they can't. And the windows are shaking, and the wind's blowing in the house, and it's like there's like a hurricane inside the building, and it's very it's like The Trouble with Mary Jane, except this is not funny. This is not funny. No. And the little girl's like, so she's in between two big windows. Yeah. And she's like, it's the Grither. And they're like, honey, that was just a story. Mm. And, it's like one of those, you shouldn't say anything bad about the Grither. And the kid's trembling in fear. And as the parents are getting up, going over towards the kid, we hear more of the noise. And these two long arms with blue and red veins, and they're all white and gross and gnarly looking. Now, these are pretty good. That spider episode, these are movies. I wonder what happened to those arms. They probably threw them away, but that would have
probably they disintegrated at some point.
You think they'd make as much money as Nubbins did? Probably not. Anyway,
I doubt it.
So, and they grab the heads of each of the parents and they start shaking them until they crush and snap their heads, and they fall to the ground. And the uncle's in shock, and the brother's in shock, and the little girl is she just witnessed her parents being. I wish if this was like a movie, they would have snapped the heads off, and they would have been.
There's been blood all over the place.
Peter Jackson had done it in the 80s. That would have been
exactly. It would have been a gore fest.
So the parents are dead, and it's kind of like it reminds me of the scene in Salem's Lot, the TV version where Barlow comes in and kills the two parents. It's kind of that was a gruesome scene too. But anyway, and then the little girl's shivering, and she goes, "That definitely wasn't Santa Claus."
Yeah, because doesn't the uncle say, what in the world was that? And she says, it wasn't Santa
Yeah,
Claus.
yeah. So that teaches you, don't tell scary stories to your kids or your neck will get snapped.
Yes, that is the moral
That
of
is the
Seasons
moral.
of Belief.
I
uh,
believe that was the moral.
yes. Um, so I
Ah,
think we've officially reached the end of this part one of season three of Tales from the Dark Side.
ah.
Barring anything happening, me and TJ will be back next Wednesday, covering the last 11 episodes of this season.
Yeah, this is the second half is very, you think it was mixed this first half? The second half, I don't think I like more than a couple episodes.
Yeah, I
I
think
like the
I'm
next
with
one.
you.
The next one I
Do you?
like. Miss Mate, we'll wait for next week, but I like the next one and maybe one or two other ones, but other than that.
Um, so TJ, is there anything else you want to bring up before we get off here, or anything you want to promote or anything?
Nope, I'm good. Oh, if
Oh,
anybody is going to have any Scream streams about the Scream 6, I would love to talk about that. Have you
yeah,
seen it?
I've seen it, and you know, I liked it. I think I may have liked it a little bit better than part five. Um,
A
I
lot of people saying that. Yeah.
I actively dislike part four. If I dislike any of the Scream franchise, it would be part four. But part one is always going to hold a special place for me because that was the first. You know, I think CK and Uncle Bill kind of brought this up in their little review of Scream
Mm-hmm.
6, that the thing about them bringing up the rules and kind of having to make rules for each one of these new ones. You know, if it's a sequel, we've got these rules. If it's, something else, we got to have these rules. That's getting kind of tired now. And I would have to agree with them because when Scream was fresh and new and original,
Mm-hmm.
that was cool. Now it is sort of getting tired that, oh, we got to have new rules again. No, you don't have to have new rules again. Just
I think this last one was less meta than the other ones, and
right.
I think they need to get meta without doing stuff they've already done. I
That
mean,
makes
like you
sense.
said, the rules, even the not to spoil anything if anybody hasn't seen it yet, but the ending is kind of derivative of prior episodes. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
in the movie they did different things, but they did different things for the series, not different things in the horror movie.
Yeah,
And I mean, they got to do something a lot more creative, and they got to take more chances. I don't think they took enough chances in
right.
this
And
last one, especially if they're going to do another one.
I'm not going to give anything away. Yeah, Texas says no spoilers. I'm not going to give anything away, but there was one point near the end of the movie where I said, "You got to be kidding me." Because I really, kind of couldn't believe they did this. And TJ may know what I'm talking about, but like I said, I don't want to, and it has nothing to do with the killer in the movie. This has something to do with, another character in the movie.
Yeah,
So just beware that there might be some things where I know you got to suspend disbelief with horror movies. I've said that
yeah.
before. I'll say it again, but this was a little bit like, come on, guys.
Well, when I watched it, I was enjoying it, and
Mhm.
a couple of things I noticed, but I didn't like harp on them because I want to watch the full thing before I start. And then the next day, or even that evening, I was like going, "Oh, this and that." Like I said, there's some plot things, and I'm like, "That makes no sense." And yeah, it's a horror movie, and I'll suspend disbelief, but I'm like, even in the context of the story, it's like, wait a minute, and
Exactly. Yeah,
uh,
what are you doing here? So yeah, we're not going to go into spoiler territory. Texas says, this was very entertaining. Thanks, Dana and TJ. Well, you're very welcome, Texas. Um, Rooster says he looks forward to seeing both of us next week. And I want to echo what TJ said in the chat. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. And if everything bodes well, we will be back next week with the last half of these. I just want to remind you again, I'm doing the third part of the For Love of John Cusack stream. And then I will be joining the Dead Pit boys plus some of the other Dead Pit faithful for a Leprechaun watch along. So you guys can look forward to that. I think Wes told me it was starting at 10 p.m. That'll be 10 p.m. Eastern time for anybody that wants to join in on that. TJ is seeming
That's
like
so
he's
late.
asleep. Yeah, but
So
it's
we've
a
been on it
Friday.
for
It's a Friday.
3.5 freaking hours.
So anyway, with all that being said, I'm gonna skedaddle on out of here for the night. And before I go, I want to thank TJ again for joining me on this stream.
Thank you for.
He makes these so much better, because if it was just me, they wouldn't be nearly as entertaining.
Thanks.
And I will see everyone on the flip side. Everybody have a good night. TJ, you have a good night too.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.